All right. Another week, another episode. We've been promoting the shit out of this one for almost 2.5 weeks now. It's the AFC West Roundtable. I am your host, Cory.
And I am Austin.
We have Tim with Answer the Call podcast. Matt is joining us, OC News 365. And Cody is from the Drew Code Sports Talk podcast. We all represent different teams of the AFC West. So sit back for hopefully the next hour and a half as we navigate through what is the AFC West.
Rolling out. Looking for the rookie record. Ball tip and oh my gosh! The double deflection. Set up the screen instead of floated over the middle. Jump ball and it's Bowers down the sideline. The rookie from Georgia with the game's first score. Mahomes. Touchdown. Mahomes.
Woo!
Hats off
That
to Cody
was
for that intro
intro
video,
video,
boys. That
boys.
got me fired up, Cody. So thank you again for making the intro video for that. Tim, I'm going to hand it off to you, and you're going to go ahead and get us started.
All right, so I have this crazy which would you rather happen scenario. A friend of mine and I came up with it at work the other day. And what I would like to know from each of you guys, and for all the listeners, feel free to comment. Would you rather take a punch from Iron Mike Tyson in his prime, bare knuckle to your sternum, or would you rather be running a slant route with Ray Lewis and Cam Chancellor waiting on you, and you have to catch the ball as they're both hitting you at the same time? Matt, I want to get started with you first.
I mean, the way my body's set up, I'm not going to survive either one of them. So, but I'm a football guy, so I'm going to take my chances on the gridiron and see if maybe, the hips got some action left in them and try and avoid that Ray Lewis and Cam Chancellor. But if not, VA claims are in my record, so I'm gonna go with that.
Cory, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking a hit from Mike Tyson. I do know this much. I grew up and I was able to see Mike Tyson when he was, and I even saw Mike Tyson at his age now. Sign me up for the Ray Lewis and Cam Chancellor. I am, again, probably still going to die either way because I have no athletic skill.
Oh, I should point out that you have to make this catch or you have to do it again. Like that was
I'll take that chance.
Okay.
My chances of catching the football are way better than surviving a straight punch bare knuckle from Mike Tyson.
Cody, let's hear your thoughts on that.
So very much like Cory, there's no surviving a Mike Tyson punch straight up. So I think my survival chances would be terrible, but I would survive going across the middle against Cam Chancellor and Ed Reed. And if I have to catch the ball or do it again, I'm either going to the hospital or I'm just not catching this ball. There's no way but there's no way you survive a Mike Tyson straight up. At 60 something years old, he nearly took the head off of Jake Paul. Prime Mike Tyson would be put away for murder, basically, for what he can do with his hands. So yeah, no, give me the over the middle catch.
I'm doing the safe catch that you're able to do on Madden and NCAA.
Oh, yeah.
Just get in the fetal position right as they're coming. Yep. Just drop down. Yeah, they're probably not even going for the ball. They're going for you. So just get low and hopefully they run past you.
Absolutely. So I kind of feel like I know what Austin's response is. Like he's going to have like this I'm a badass mentality, and
we got a comment. Seems a lot like the Hunter guys versus gorilla debate. You're done no matter the choice you make. I mean, spot on. Yeah, you're dead either way. It doesn't matter.
What do you want to take there, Austin?
Yeah, I think we summed it up. I think no matter what, death would be in all of our futures. But I'm definitely running the route. I at least have a little bit. Am I in pads? Like, am I in a football uniform? Like,
Yeah. We're all in
protection?
pads. We're like, it's a football game. Like, but it's
Yeah,
just
no,
you
I mean,
versus
I
them.
How did I make the team? I'm not very. How did I get on this team? When did I sign up? That's my question now. Like, how did I end up in this scenario?
Right. I was a left guard. I was left side of the bench guard in the Gatorade. So the fact that I'm running routes is something else.
I actually was on the defensive side, making those hits. But my buddy actually said that he would try and take the punch from Mike Tyson because he said that he's had a cracked sternum before. So I'm like, but that's like a whole nother level. You're talking about like a punctured lung, like your heart stopping. So
you're talking about death.
Yeah.
Not a cracked sternum. You're talking about death.
So that is the crazy which would you rather situation that I came up with. Cory, I'll let you take it away now.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. It's a nice little icebreaker type scenario there.
Yeah.
So draft finished up, right? We've had a chance to get through most of the offseason. I know rookie camps are starting up. I saw the Chiefs had been hosting theirs and getting those guys on the field. So we are going to start with, a little bit of the draft review. So basically what I'm going to do is I want us to kind of go through, and we're going to let Austin start because he's obviously representing the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And we're all going to grade and kind of give our thoughts on the Chiefs draft. So, bro, I'll go ahead and let you take it from here. And one thing that I'll do also as a little reminder for those watching is we'll throw it up kind of like right there that, Simmons, Norman Lott, Gelati, Williams, Royals, Bassa, and then obviously Matt and I, we're super sad to see Rashad Smith get drafted by the Chiefs as well, especially where they were able to get him. So, bro, take it from here.
Yeah. What we'll learn throughout this is I'm a little harder of a grader when it comes to teams and their drafts. I saw a lot of people say they really love the Chiefs draft, and I do. I like the Chiefs draft. I don't know if I put it in the A category. I'm gonna go B plus. I liked the middle rounds with the defensive line, the linebacker, because that's really where the Chiefs needed help, right? But we did need a left tackle. If he pans out, he returns healthy and back to form, then I think Simmons at 31 was a steal, or 32 was a steal. But overall, I don't know if the defense was attacked enough in the draft. I'm a defensive first guy, so that's where my take is. But I like the Royals pick. I think that's great value, and then I think the Rashad Smith pick in the 7th round is even greater value. But for me, the draft is half of who you get and half of the holes you fill. And I still feel like there's a few holes defensively left that I would have liked to see.
Yeah, Cody, let's go ahead and get your thoughts on the Chiefs.
So, do you want me to give what I graded them or their overall thoughts regarding the picks?
Yeah, give your grade and then maybe just kind of, someone that you may have thought the Chiefs had no chance of maybe getting, and there he is.
Well, so the first player that comes to mind as you start me on that one would be Jalen Royals, in my opinion. Like the fact that the Chiefs were able to find such late round value for a player or a receiver within that offense that could be extremely productive, immediately concerns me, just because the rest of the league has seen this before. It happened last year when they got Xavier Worthy at the bottom of the first round last year, and Xavier Worthy from the Central Valley, so representing my side of the country there. But the fact that Jalen Royals fell to them that late and they were able to get such good value, to me, I think that's a pretty big steal. Josh Simmons, in my opinion, I think was a tackle that could have gone way earlier in the draft. And the fact that you had a lot of teams, and I'll point to the Bengals, and I'll even point to the Seahawks. Some of their first round draft picks were a little interesting, to where Josh Simmons could have gone as high as 18 or 20. It fell to the very last pick. And I think Simmons has a lot of value for that front. And that kind of concerns me, because one of the things that, the way that you combat the Chiefs is getting pressure to Mahomes. But if there's no pressure going to Mahomes, then, what is he what is he worrying about? And, the Eagles had a great blueprint in the Super Bowl to get Mahomes uncomfortable in the pocket, but you solidify that offensive line. Now you can neutralize any, pass rush that comes through. So Jalen Royals to me was a big steal. Simmons, I'm actually that's a very good value for the level of tackle that he is. And also too, Norman Lott, I think, is an underrated pick for what that defense can do, especially with Steve Spagnuolo, what he's been able to do with that pressure defense. And, again, you guys do need a little bit more on the front, but the fact that that secondary and the linebacking core is really solidified, getting a value like Norman Lott is extremely important. And in my opinion, the Chiefs got an A grade just because of they're really smart at drafting. Obviously, Andy Reid as a head coach. Like, how do you not find value in that? And until otherwise, again, the Chiefs are just very good about finding hidden gems, and they've done that, which is why they've been relevant in the AFC West for the following 10 years.
Yeah, and we've always talked about, even last year going, into this past season, of the Chiefs obviously have the championship pedigree, right? Like, yeah, they still have holes, but they're not as, like noticeable as like the Broncos, right? So, or the Raiders, or even the Chargers for that, just because of what they're able to do. And then we even sat just for fun last night and kind of went back through the PFF top 10 list of like what PFF had, and the amount of guys that PFF had in the top, 6 or 7 that the Chiefs were able to pull in, the 4th, 5th, 6th round was just mind blowing. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs draft?
Okay, so looking at this, it just kind of has that typical Chiefs draft. Okay, not a lot of sizzle, not a lot of flash, but that's not who the Chiefs are. And like Austin and both Cody said, there was some great value picks. Obviously, the Rashad Smith and the last pick for the Chiefs was a great pick. And what I'm really looking at was that Norman Lott, the defensive tackle out of Tennessee. He's not going to get to the quarterback a lot per se, but what he can do is clog up lanes for those linebackers to let them get in. But I mean, also he's going to be probably sitting right next to Chris Jones, who they're going to try to double team. So that might actually free up a little bit of lane for him to get to the quarterback. So I think that was a really good pick. And the Jalen Royals, very underrated. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need superstar wide receivers. He makes receivers. And, that's what great quarterbacks do. Tom Brady did it back in the Patriot days, and now Patrick Mahomes is doing it here in the Chiefs. So when I look at it, like, nothing really stands out to me, like in terms of like sizzle and flash, but it's Andy Reid. He's not a flashy guy. He's a true American football coach, and he has a certain scheme that he wants to run. And I feel that he did a really good job in this draft to put the players that fit his system really well. And there's a reason that the Kansas City Chiefs have been on top of the AFC West for so long, and it's because it starts with Andy Reid being a great coach.
Yeah, Matt, wrap it up with what you think with the Chiefs draft.
Yeah, I'm with Austin on the grade. I gave them a B myself. I do think they should be thanking the Texans for trading out and giving up Josh Simmons, because Lord knows the Texans needed help on their line. But so did the Chiefs. I mean, again, the 2023 season, they gave up just 28 sacks. This season, they gave up 46. So, I mean, that's a huge jump. They needed to boost up their line. They did that. They added Josh Simmons, who was like one of the highest tackles in the draft. And then they also boosted up their defensive line, adding, we were saying Norman Lott. They needed that anchor on the line, especially with Tershawn Wharton gone. They needed that anchor on the line. And now, like Andy was saying, everyone's going to be more focused on Chris Jones. And, the back end of the year with Chris Jones, he only had 3 sacks to his name by Thanksgiving Day, and that's not like him. So now everyone's kind of focusing on Chris Jones. But if you add in that other playmaker like Norman Lott, that's going to open up Chris Jones as well. So I think as far as bolstering up their line, I think they did a good job. I know, Cory, you and I were hyping up Rashard Smith, and it was sad to see him go, but I get why they did it. Isaiah Pacheco, with that injury, coming back from that, he had a hard time coming back from that injury. So bringing in a guy like Rashard Smith, who you can do so much with, I think that was a good pickup. So overall, I think they did pretty well, and it's going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I still liked what the Chiefs did in this draft. I think obviously Smith. I think Andy's gonna have fun with this pick, right? Like just what he likes to do. And I think the nice thing and what's crazy about the AFC West coaches, all of these coaches, they love the screen game, right? So now you throw in Rashad Smith with Andy Reid and his screen ability and his screen game and his schemes with the screen, and you can even get him out there in the slot. Now what? Now what are you going to do? Because that's just another body out there that you got to account for. But I like the Gelati pick, and this is really the only one that I heard someone act like Andy, like name drop, like he's George Karlaftis, right? So that's a pretty high praise for a guy who, you know, he did pretty good at Louisville, right? So that's kind of where I'm sitting is like, yeah, they're all great, and everyone wants to talk about Simmons, and that's obviously the revolving door, which Denver was in that forever, trying to find that tackle, right? We got to find that tackle. We got to find that tackle. If he pans out, obviously that's a win. So I'm still going to give them an A, but a lot of it has to fall on what Simmons is able to do because, you look back, the Chiefs drafted Felix Uzama. Uzama, is that right?
Felix Anabuke, FAU.
Sorry, Justin. I know K-State, yeah, but he hasn't panned out at all how they thought. So I think Gelati's going to come in and slide right over him in getting more reps in that. So, and then you look back to the Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So the Chiefs haven't completely selected really good in the 31 to 32 range. So it will be interesting to see kind of how that goes. Does anyone else have any comments on the Chiefs before we move on to our next team?
I appreciate all the high grades. I guess I am the hardest one. I don't know. I would have liked one more secondary player, which is why I was a little harder on it. But that's I'm a defensive guy, so I appreciate all the lovely grades from you guys.
Well, it seems like the last few years the Chiefs have been a little underwhelming in the receiver department, which I was, now that they're going to get Rashid Rice back healthy, Xavier Worthy going to have an extra year under his belt. Now you add in Jalen Royals, excuse me, I keep getting his name wrong. Argument could be made that the Chiefs wide receiver room is probably the strongest it's been in a long time. And so I'm concerned with that because it feels like the last two seasons, Mahomes hasn't really stretched the field like he used to when he took the league by storm. And my concern is now put Andy Reid with a high-powered offense and it's game over for the league. So, which is why I think respectively, besides the Chiefs, our other teams' drafts kind of really did lean a little bit on the defensive side to really protect and control that side of the field to not allow a lot of those over-the-top downhill throws, which Mahomes can do. And, again, the Chiefs probably have a lot to prove. And so I'm not trying to undersell the Chiefs. I'm not trying to hype them up. I'm just realistic with Andy Reid doesn't miss a lot on picks. He doesn't waste them for nothing. He doesn't trade them for any particular reason unless he finds value in you. So I can appreciate, Austin, you're a hard critic regarding the Chiefs, but I also don't want to undersell. I think the Chiefs are a lot stronger of a team, even on drafting, than people give them credit for. And that's why they've maintained their dominance for so long.
Yeah, I agree. And we even still have Hollywood Brown. So I think the big part with Royals is if you have that one or two injuries, you're not screwed anymore. So I do like that pick. They've been battle tested and injury riddled in the receiver room. So I think they're a little better off now for sure. It's going to be excited to see if we can get back to those early Mahomes days. So
I hope not.
I get it.
Yeah, no, I hope not either. So let's move to the Chargers as we see here. Yeah. This is actually the one I'm actually most intrigued by just because I've had a chance to talk to you, Tim, and obviously I talked to my brother about thoughts on this and this draft. So again, I'm going to let you start it because you're representing the Chargers, and then we're going to go from Tim, and then we're going to go over here to the dude sitting next to me because I'm actually really excited for this. So Tim, floor is yours.
Okay, so first and foremost, Jim Harbaugh is creating a culture in LA. He runs a smash mouth style football. Now, with that said, I think the Chargers did a really good job overall. But I'm going to tell you this, the Omarion Hampton pick, Harbaugh was not expecting that at all. I think he was actually trying to go a different route. And then Hampton was just kind of sitting there at 22. And Harbaugh's like, dude, second best running back in the class just fell to us, and some even have him as the best overall back. He's more of a pass catching back than Ashton Genty is, but a player like Hampton just kind of falls in the lap to Harbaugh at 22, and that kind of really changed how the Chargers dictated the draft and went with the future draft picks on that, because I think they were trying to maybe go defense in the first round, but then Hampton landed there, and so they took him. Now they got that smash mouth. They signed Najee Harris in the offseason. Now they're pairing him, Amari Hampton with Najee Harris. That's going to be a dynamic duo in the backfield, maybe even electric. Who knows? But some of the picks that really are just kind of underrated picks for me that I got really excited on is, obviously the Trey Harris pick. And, I know Austin was a kind of a Trey Harris guy, but now he's probably going to have to root against him. And, but, 55th overall, Trey Harris going to the Chargers, pairing him up with Ladd McConkey, Justin Herbert at quarterback. And, Trey Harris can learn under a veteran like Mike Williams, who they brought back in the offseason. And I'm going to tell you another wide receiver, and that is Keandre Lambert-Smith. I thought that has like potential of being a sleeper pick, because he's really good at separation at the line of scrimmage from the corners, especially if they give him just a little bit of cushion. His first couple of steps are wicked. He has 4.37 speed. He's also the cousin of Cam Chancellor, so he's got that dog in him. So overall, I thought the Chargers did a really good job. But I mean, looking at it, they were attacking the offensive side, but then they kind of balanced it back with some defense. And I really like the Jamari Caldwell, the defensive tackle from Oregon. I actually thought he could possibly go in the mid-second round, and he kind of was one of those that fell to the Chargers as well. So as a Chargers fan, I'm really happy. But at the same time, I got to put, I got to kind of – those expectations are up here, but, I need to bring them down here because, it looks good on paper, but it's a whole different ball game trying to put that paper on the field and actually dominate the field like they need to win the AFC West this year. So, but solid B+, A- draft grade for the Chargers. And the reason I don't go like a solid A is just because, I don't want to be biased. Let's be real.
Yeah, no, that wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It may not get as heated. I am still a Trey Harris guy, by the way. I do hate that he's on the Chargers, but as we all know, I had him as the best receiver in this draft, so that's obviously incredible value. I do like that pick for them. I do. I think, and I said it with the Chiefs one, I think while I'm still a little hesitant on the Chargers draft is because I still think the draft, you need to fill some of your biggest needs. And maybe I missed a signing or something in the offseason where Chargers addressed their interior offensive line. But if they didn't address that offensive line in the interior, that's why I can't grade them high. If you think about the one thing that slowed down the Chargers and Justin Herbert, it's Justin Herbert getting mauled up the middle, cracking ribs, hitting his thumb, doing something along those lines. To me, that was the absolute biggest need. And I don't think they drafted one at all. So did they address that in the offseason? Is there a signing I missed, or are they still rolling with what they had?
Wait, say that one more time.
The interior offensive line, did I miss a signing? Did they address that with free agency?
So yeah, they did have Mekhi Becton, the offensive guard tackle from Philadelphia last season. They did sign him in the offseason. And then they did draft a lineman, Branson Taylor from Pittsburgh, in the 6th round, 199th overall. So they did do a little. They should have done a little bit more, I feel like. But in Harbaugh, I trust, and
yes,
I think this is a good pick, like a good draft for him.
No, I agree. I think it was a good draft. I don't know. Everything that slowed the Chargers down since Herbert's gotten there is just him getting mauled up the middle, and I really would have drilled that home for kind of what we said with Simmons and the Chiefs, right? Like,
right.
If you just give Patrick Mahomes time to do what he needs, and I think Herbert's in that boat. Herbert doesn't really need playmakers. If he has time, he's going to make the play, plain and simple. He's an elite quarterback, there's no other way to put it. He is a great quarterback. Just the one thing that slowed him down is getting mauled up the middle. I do like the defensive lineman pick. You're spot on with that. I absolutely love it. Great pickup for them. Their defense is already really good, so I can understand not addressing defense a whole lot. So I'm with you. I'm in the B to B plus range, just because I really think that interior should. Becton's a good signing, but I still think they should have solidified it a little more. And to me, that's what you do in the draft is cover up needs as well. I get the Hampton one, maybe not a need, but when someone falls, you got to take them. So I get that, but that's why everything about their draft is good. Just I don't think they hit the right spots enough.
I have another player, but I do want to hear the other guys, because if they are going to mention this player, I don't want to take away from their take. So I'll let them say it, and then I will say my last player that I was actually really excited about.
I did want to. I was saving my best player for them for last. I believe they drafted the tight end.
Yep. And that's where I was going. That's all.
I loved him. I think we were looking at tight end rankings, and PFF didn't put him in the top 10. And I think I ended up having him like 7th or 8th because I absolutely loved him.
Yeah.
And I think that alone, with that offense and Harbaugh, that pick more than even Hampton or Harris is going to come up more crucial. Probably middle to late season. I love the pick. So, yeah, that was my favorite pick by them outside of Trey Harris, because obviously I was.
Matt, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought the Chargers drafted really well in those first 2 rounds. Obviously Hampton was available. You want to take Hampton. You take your best available. Hampton was the best available for the Chargers at that point. Trey Harris was another good pickup. He was definitely in my top 5 receivers as well. Someone that I was actually really, maybe this is the guy you were going to talk about, was Jamar Caldwell from Oregon on their defensive line. I mean, they really needed help on their defense, especially in the interior. Because if you look at all the Chargers games, they were very inconsistent in their, in stopping the run. It was either they had a good first half, and it was very evident against the Ravens. Good first half. I think Derrick Henry only had 23 yards in the first half of that game. And then the next half, they just kind of forgot what to do. And Henry just ran all over the field and ended up rushing for over 100 yards. So I think the Chargers' run game was very inconsistent. So adding that big guy, Jamar Caldwell, adding him on the line, I think that was a great pickup. I think it was a very underrated pickup for them. He's not talked about much, but I think it was a good signing for them. I would have liked to see them kind of focus more, like Austin. I would have loved to see them focus more on their offensive line. As a Broncos fan, I'm glad they didn't. We led the league in sacks. So, hey, let us come on in again. That's great. No problem there. But I think they should have focused more on their offensive line. Very underrated secondary with the Chargers. So I think, the Caldwell pickup, Hampton pickup, and Trey Harris were good pickups, but definitely should have focused on their offensive line as well.
And Cody.
So if I had to give a grade to this, I would say it's a solid B, teetering to B plus. To me, the 2 hits for the Chargers were Omarion Hampton and for sure Trey Harris, just for the simple fact that the Chargers late in the season really leaning on Ladd McConkey, didn't really have any sort of outside receiver presence. Now you get a Trey Harris that can kind of be outside. He can go into the slot. You can interchange him with McConkey, I think is huge. The Mike Williams re-signing, I got to be honest, I know that as Charger fans, you guys are in love with him. I don't know what all the hype is for Mike Williams. To me, he was an expensive first or second round pick that hasn't really panned out. He's had certain flashes, and every now and again he'll come out, but he just doesn't seem consistent to be, in my opinion, a receiver kind of a threat. He's productive, but really you're not going to get much out of him. So I think Harbaugh getting a Trey Harris really takes the pressure off of having to rely on a Mike Williams to go stretch the field. And also, I think another defensive pick for the Chargers that I think is a little underrated is the Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. You're going to have him potentially opposite of Khalil Mack, learning under Khalil Mack. And, you want to talk about run stopping. They did that in the interior with the 3rd round pick that we just talked about. And you got Kennard in there. I think that's a little bit of an an underestimated one, in my opinion, to where that actually could bear fruit a little bit to the edges, especially if it's run stopping or you're really trying to put pressure out on the quarterback. You're coming from the outside, maybe on the blind side spot of the quarterback. So I think that was a good one. The offensive line for the Chargers, in my opinion, have really identified problems. Mikael Becton was a good signing. They also signed Andre James, who was a former Raider center. he was a big addition. Not to mention they still have Slater, they still have Joel Alt, so they've got a potential to have like a top 5 offensive line. And we'll see what it looks like, because if I'm not mistaken, last year the Chargers offensive line suffered with injuries, which is why we saw a lot of like the Chargers should have made a big jump, which they did because they obviously got into the wild card, but just couldn't break the glass ceiling, so to speak. And a lot of it was because there was no protection for Justin Herbert, as what we were talking about. So he can make a play given time, but you don't want him running for his life every single play, which is what it felt like he was doing towards the latter part of the season. But ultimately, though, for the Chargers specifically, I think a solid B to B plus is what I would grade their draft picks from this past draft.
Oh, real quick, you mentioned Mike Williams. Mike Williams isn't there to be the Mike Williams that they drafted him. He is quite literally kind of what you said. He's just there as a mentor for Trey Harris. They're kind of similar builds, and I like Mike Williams coming back to mentor the young receivers. So I don't expect Mike Williams to catch for 1,000 yards a season or lead the league in receiving or in touchdowns or catches for that matter. But what I do expect is him to be a really good mentor for even Ladd McConkey, in his second year, and Trey Harris, and even the tight end and the wide receiver that we got in the 5th round. So I think he'll be a good mentor, a good veteran leader, that veteran presence in the locker room. So really for me, that's what Mike Williams is to me. He's not going to be much of a factor in the passing game this season.
My only pushback to that is if that was the case, if we were looking at for the Chargers to bring back a former Charger in the receiving room, I think there would have been better value with maybe going out there and getting a Keenan Allen, because he is a better route runner, better hands. You want to talk about a guy that not only had multiple ACL injuries and then came back and was still arguably top 5 in his position just based on route running and being able to get Justin Herbert an area to throw the ball to where he can catch it. A guy I would have thought to bring into the receiving room to really mold and help bring up like the Chargers, the way in a sense. And I think, in my opinion, Keenan Allen is closer to a John Harbaugh kind of guy than Mike Williams, in my opinion. And again, I'm not in the Chargers world, but from the outside, I think Keenan Allen would have been a player I think would have served better in the receiver room than a Mike Williams. I understand like he's a mentor and all that to the guys, and I can respect that. I think Keenan Allen probably would have fit the bill then if that's all you're looking for as a guy to help these young wide receivers learn the game, timing. How does Herbert like to throw the ball? Where's the window at? Like Allen, in my opinion, would have been better served in that position.
Oh, hey, I am one of the biggest Keenan Allen fans out there. And, I mean, there's still a chance that he does come back. It's looking like it's not likely to happen, but there's still that chance that he does come back later as we get closer to the season. So,
yeah, and I think Keenan Allen's he has a little more left in the gas tank, where the money situation, his contract's probably a little more, where he's still probably looking for a 2, maybe even a 3-year deal, north of, I'm guessing probably in the 12 to 15 range as far as money goes. And the Chargers are probably like, well, not necessarily what we're able to do right now. So yeah, I like him as a B plus. It's one of those where I'm going to watch Omarion Hampton really closely, because that is one that Denver kind of, passed up on, which we all know that a lot of the mocks had Hampton to the Broncos at 20, and just to see the Chargers grab him, it's going to be interesting, right? That's kind of where we're at as far as like, what's Hampton doing? What's he going to do in division? What's he going to do against Denver? So I'm hoping Sean Payton doesn't regret it, and we'll get to the Broncos shortly. But that's kind of where I'm at. I like the BB plus range, but I really am truly going to be just a hawk on watching what Omarion Hampton's doing. So with that, let's move on to our next group. That's going to be the Raiders. Yeah, we're saving the best for last, Matt, I know. But we're going to go to the Raiders. Let's pull up.
Wait, save the best for last. You need to have the Broncos go next, right? Is that the order it needs to go?
So there's the Raiders draft class. They obviously got the prize pick there at, with Genty, and just going down the list. I mean, that's what 11 solid players in my opinion. But Cody, you are representing the Raiders, so the floor is yours, and you may start with what your thoughts are on the Raiders draft.
So as much as I want to give them a solid A plus, multiple pluses behind that A, I think realistically, if I had to break down, obviously position of need, where I think John Spytek and Pete Carroll nailed it, maybe in my opinion, they might have missed it. I'm going to be realistic. I'm going to kind of keep it with the theme. They got a solid B. I'm not going B plus. I'm not going B minus. A firm B. Like, I love the picks. I love Genty, of course. I really feel like he's going to fit the offense really, really well. Would I have rather kind of gone a little bit more bully ball in terms of the defense? I would have loved to, but can't deny getting, a cornerback like Porter. I think he brings a lot of value, could be a day one starter. In the 4th round, we got those 2 offensive tackles back to back. That could be a plug and play. My concern is kind of in the latter part of it, when it feels like we were kind of just throwing picks away by getting, Mallet, who potential wide receiver conversion, and we're going to see if he turns into another Julian Edelman. So we'll see how that turns out. But overall, I think I like, obviously, the Jack Besh pick. The receiver out of Tennessee, his name is escaping me right now. I think that's an interesting one. I kind of don't like when we go to the old school Raiders thought of getting a really fast guy, having him run down the field, and then you throw the ball. I really feel like our football team needs to be methodical, really needs to, yes, he does need a new barber, no doubt. Really needs to be methodical, someone that's going to be able to keep the defense on their toes. Is it going to be a screenplay? Thankfully we got Brock Bowers. He's going to be a beast for many years. So I really think that there are some pieces that are complementary. Would I have much rather have gotten a little bit more depth at the offensive line position? Yes, I really think our linebacking position is a huge problem. I don't even think we really touched it in the draft, which is concerning because we really need a number one linebacking guy in that part of the field that's going to be able to direct the defense. And we got some pieces, we got Max Crosby, we got Christian Watson coming back from injury. Malcolm Kuntz. I can't even talk today.
Yeah.
We got a lot of guys around the defensive ball that are going to come back and are going to be a big difference maker. And having Patrick Graham as the DC has really changed the Raiders defense. But some positions of need, I felt like we could have prioritized maybe some linebacker. We didn't even address safety, which is another problem. So there are some things I can nitpick a little bit, very similar to Austin. As much as I want to say we nailed it, we hit it out of the park. A lot of other, articles are saying the same thing. I agree, but I mean, what does that actually mean? Are they really going to hit, or does it look great on paper? I need to see what Pete Carroll instills. I need to see what this offensive looks like behind Chip Kelly. I need to see it all come together before I can say, oh yeah, we nailed it, because we've had several drafts in my lifetime as a Raiders fan where I came out of it oh, you guys, we're winning it all next year. We nailed it. And we weren't even close. Half the draft picks were a wash or whatever. And so I don't want to get too high on the draft picks, but I think it's a good start for John Spytek in the Pete Carroll era.
Matt, you're up.
Yeah. As far as the barber goes, there's someone in the Navy at Navy boot camp who cuts hair, and we call her the Dragon Lady. You guys can Google her. I would recommend her. She does a great job. She cut my hair.
Name.
Oh yeah. wait till you find out why.
Oh.
Whoa.
Wait a minute.
Just saying. Hold on. Just saying. Anyway, I'm with Cody though. I give him a solid B. I knew they were going to get Genty. I knew it. All the followers on my page, the Broncos fans, were saying, "Oh, they're gonna trade up and get Genty." I was like, "No, they're not. There's no way the Raiders are gonna pass them up, especially to us." So I expected that. I think that was a good pickup. But I'm with Cody. I think they really needed to, go after their secondary. They really needed that. They needed corners. They needed safeties. They needed to address their linebacker core. I think, Cody, you guys lost 2 linebackers this offseason, right?
We did. Yep.
Yep.
We lost two big ones. Yep.
Yep. You lost 2 linebackers. I think you did a good job, kind of building up your defensive line and your offensive line. I think that was a good job. But I mean, there was other opportunities to draft corners. There were some good corners late in the draft still available, and they just kept passing up on them. And again, I get the concept of you want to build up your line, you want to build up your offensive line, you want to build up your defensive line. But I mean, where you guys were getting torched the most was in the middle of the field and in the secondary. I mean, I think you missed out on that as far as developing your line and your run game. I think you guys knocked it out of the park as far as that goes. But I give them a B.
Bro.
Yeah, I just want to start out by saying just so people don't think I'm gonna have any kind of hatred or anything. Like I do hate the Raiders, and with that being said, I'm giving their draft an A+.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm gonna tell you why. The Raiders are, and no disrespect, but the Raiders are a team where they're one of the few where they could just draft best available because not a lot of positions are solidified.
Mhm.
Plain and simple. And I think the first 3 picks of Genty, Beck, and Porter, absolute home runs. And then I think doubling up on the tackles, even better. And I think, it fell in a way where Pete can do what Pete needs to do to make him competitive. You're not going to go from what you did, and to legitimate like threat to the AFC, right? Like people
Right.
get excited when they see what the Texans have done, and then like the Commanders, like those are like unicorns. That doesn't happen. And I think Pete was able to build inside out, work on the lines. Now you're working on the run game. The rest will come. But I think they absolutely demolished this draft. It was a very Pete Carroll draft. I think, doubling up offensive linemen, getting arguably one of the highest graded running backs to probably see the draft in a while, able to get that. And we know Pete, he'll use a bell cow. He's still one of those guys. He's going to touch the rock. So I think the Raiders nailed it. I don't think this immediately makes them a 14-win team. I don't think there's any draft that could have done that.
Mhm.
But I think this is an absolutely incredible start to a rebuild for the Raiders to get back to relevancy. Honestly, their first 3 picks were home runs, and if you can say that about any team, it's great. It's a great draft. So, positional value or not, I felt a lot of times they took really what was best player available or roughly. So I think when a team does that and you have a roster like the Raiders do, it doesn't get better than that. So yes, I hate the Raiders and I will never like them, but I absolutely love their draft. There are other things they probably could have addressed, absolutely. But you can only address so much in the draft when you have, unfortunately, as many positions open as you do.
Right.
And I think they're starting inside out, which is very Pete Carroll like.
Mhm.
And what he started with that inside out is it has the makings of looking amazing. Now I like you said, it could all end up being dog shit and not
Yep.
pan out. I get that, but right now on paper, just grading their draft, there's no way I would say anybody had a better draft than the Raiders.
Damn it, Austin! Don't give me hope. Damn it! Don't do it.
Tim, what do you think?
Okay, so first and foremost, obviously, arguably one of the best players in the draft, right at 6, A+ on that pick alone. Pete Carroll has learned from previous mistakes in a Super Bowl to pound the rock. He threw a slant route instead of handing the ball to Marshawn Lynch. And Ashton Genty kind of reminds us of what Marshawn Lynch was, just a real hard to tackle, just breaking everybody, 9 guys trying to tackle and still getting yards after contact. So I give him, on the first round, I give him an A+ on that pick alone. Overall, I thought they had a really solid draft. And, the Jack Beck pick is a very underrated pick. Not a lot of people actually heard of him, even knew about him coming out of college at TCU. Prior to the Senior Bowl, I had him on my radar as one of the top receivers in this draft in terms of route running, sure hands, and he's going to get those the yards after catch. So I really like and the Porter pick, and so the first 3 absolutely. The only thing I'm kind of like, I see a pattern here. Like they took 2 offensive linemen back to back. Then the next 2 picks, they took 2 defensive tackles, and then they took 2 quarterbacks, which one of them is now a wide receiver. So I was just kind of confused that did they turn in the wrong pick? Did Pete Carroll decide, oh, you know what, more is better? I don't know that approach, but overall, I will say they got some good ones. The defensive tackles, Taka Henningway from South Carolina, very underrated. I think he should have went a little bit higher, but he's a clogger. He's going to free up the lanes for them linebackers. The pick that I'm actually kind of really excited about to see how it pans out is the Cam Miller pick, 215th overall in the 6th round. Tom Brady was a 6th round pick 199 overall. And look what, and I think so I heard he didn't put his hands in the draft. He kind of let Pete Carroll and Spytek take, this draft. But the one pick that he did actually kind of have a little influence on was the Cam Miller pick, the quarterback from North Dakota State. And that could be a really interesting pick. And the other one, Tommy Mellett, he switched to wide receiver already. So, he's a 5'11", 208-pound wide receiver now. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. So, I'm going to go ahead and give the Raiders probably like an A-. Cody, I know you're probably like B+, but hey, they hit that A- because they hit the needs. They got one of the best players in the draft, and Pete Carroll with Geno Smith, a quarterback that he's familiar with. Now you get the best running back in the class, and you get a very good wide receiver to pair up with Brock Bowers. I think the Raiders are going to surprise a lot of people, but that's standings, so that's later on in the show.
Well, and I think the Jack Beck pick, and it's going to sound like I have a lot of love for Raider players, and I really don't. But I think a player like that, it's going to open up a lot for Jacoby Myers, who I still feel is not appreciated enough. Can anybody guess how many drops he had this last year?
He didn't have any.
2?
He had 0.
He had 100% catch rate.
Yep. So you have him and Bowers, and you had a guy like that. They're building something there. Like the foundation is there. They have the correct coach. They have a proven play caller. I don't know. This draft just felt very Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly like. So I think that Beck pick even makes Jacoby Myers better. It makes Brock Bowers better. I don't know.
I can see post draft that the Raiders are looking for maybe better than usual success, and what I mean by that is above 500, maybe making a push for a wild card. I don't know about really solidifying themselves in the AFC quite yet, but I feel like that this draft will probably do well one way or the other. By next year, I think we'll know where the Raiders are at on the come up. I think what my concern is with this draft is Raider Nation being under the impression that we've just fixed everything, we're good to go. And, every year it seems like we make one splash move, we do one thing and okay, great. And then obviously when we don't nail it first shot, it's a wash. It's over. We're done. And I think what I'm trying to taper back is we only have Pete Carroll for 3 seasons, according to his agreement, and then who knows who our coach is following that. And he's trying to build in the foundation, but can Raiders and the organization let this foundation set enough to where we actually see it grow and actually bear fruit? Because that's what I'm concerned with. And Mark Davis, again, 3rd head coach in 3 years or fourth head coach in 3 years. We need to have some sort of consistency and trust whoever this upper leadership is. And for the most part, I'm satisfied with the draft. I just need to see what it looks like now on the field. Do I think that we'll be able to run any of the AFC West out of the gym or out of the field? No. But do I think we have a better shot than we did last year? Yeah, I think we've done at least that much.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say the Raiders did, of the 4 teams, I think the Raiders had the best draft. Not only did you get your running back, but what's the best way of beating the Chiefs? Running the football, keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field, right? So now you have that guy. You have that. He's going to be able to get the 20 to 25 carries. Pete might even say, hey, buckle up. You might get 30, right? Because, again, we don't know what Geno's going to be like. And I still think Geno's a serviceable quarterback, but you don't know. It's going to help him to have a running back, but it's also going to help Genty to have a veteran like Geno Smith to kind of guide him along the way. One thing is the Raiders did get Mello Dotson from KU as an undrafted guy. So, I mean, I do think he makes your team. I don't know if he plays right away, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to maybe solidify into a starting slot corner or even an outside guy. So that's just my 2 cents on Mello Dotson. But, yeah, I think the Raiders, of all 4 of these teams, I think the Raiders did have the best draft.
Yeah, and I think Mello Dotson, no matter production or even how good he is, he kind of has a little bit of that old school Raider mentality. To at the very least, he's going to be a good dude to have around. Smaller guy, but he plays big, and I think that alone is why he'll make the roster. It's going to be kind of a Pete guy, kind of the maybe not the greatest player, but you got that dog in you. Like you have a little bit of that nasty Raider from the Raider heydays, you know. So I think undrafted players are making it more and more now, and I think he's a big one for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now is the time. Obviously, as I said, we save the best for last. Of course, for me and Matt, and there's 2 Bronco fans in here, so we outrule you guys. So,
It's the only Bronco fans around.
well,
True.
so there's Denver's class. I have lots of thoughts on this, but Matt, you're technically you're representing the Broncos on this. I'll still go last, so we'll start with Matt, and then we'll go Cody after Matt.
Yeah, so honestly, I think of the 4 teams, I'm very harsh on the Broncos. I think they did the worst. I don't necessarily hate the draft, but I wasn't like over the moon about it. You know, by the time they got to pick 20 and everything that was still left on the table, you know, with Judkins and Henderson, Hampton, even Dylan Sampson, Matthew Golden, Trey Harris, all this talent that Denver really needed on their offense was still on the table. And they went with Jahdae Barron. Now, not a bad pick. You know, he was rated the number 1 corner by PFF. Not a bad pick at all, but I think cornerback could have waited until like maybe the 3rd or 4th round, you know? So I was very kind of like, again, it wasn't something I was like hating, but I wasn't over the moon about it. I thought that could have waited. And then the fact that they went back-to-back edge rushers and they weren't even like prolific edge rushers. These are developmental prospects. And if you look at what's his name, Q, the kid from that guy,
Q Robinson.
yeah, Q Robinson. If you look at him, he didn't really have much experience as a pass rusher. When he did really well, but he played most of his time as a special teams player. So I'm kind of confused why they went back to back on the edge rusher. Especially because, like, you know, we needed a running back. You needed one bad, and you had Judkins on the board. You had Henderson on the board. I know, Cory, you were very high on Luther Burden, receiver. He was still on the board by the time they got there, and they just kind of passed him up for a cornerback, a position of need, but could have waited. And so I was very off guard. So I gave him a C overall on that draft.
Wow.
I did, yeah. But one person, as I started watching his highlights, the more I watched his highlights, the more I'm like, okay, I see why Peyton drafted him, is RJ Harvey, which, you know, Tim, it's kind of funny, you know, the question of the day was like, would you take a punch from Mike Tyson? Because I found out RJ Harvey's cousin is Roy Jones Jr. So I guess that I'm assuming that's what the RJ stands for. I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but you know, the more I watched his tape, though, the more I saw like how elusive he was. And, you know, Cory, you brought up a good point. All these coaches like to use the running backs in screenplays. And I watched him just, you know, even when there was a safety peeking in the backfield or a linebacker spying in the backfield, how he was still able to get out of there like undetected. And the next thing you know, he's 20 yards up the field, no one on him, and it's a touchdown. So I love the elusiveness. I love how explosive he is. I love his patience. The fact that he, you know, can run over someone and still keep going, not lose the momentum. So overall, the more I watched his highlights, the more I was like, okay, I can see why. And I think he's going to be someone good to compete with, you know, especially has a shot at RB1 with McLaughlin, who was a little inconsistent. Estime, you know, had a rough beginning, got better in the end. So now that was one of my picks to watch for, or position battles to watch for, was those 3 going at it for RB1. You know, overall, I think the Broncos are going to be okay with the picks. Again, they did draft a lot of talent. You know, Pat Bryant, who only had 1 drop this past season. He only had 1 drop pass this season. He's not the fastest receiver. He ran a 4.6 40, but he's a stride runner, and that's how he gets his separation. And he makes pre and post reads, and he knows what coverages defenses are coming at him with. But he's so good at working his way into space. He has a good catch radius, and, you know, so I think he's going to be fun to watch too, trying to compete for a spot with Troy Franklin, who kind of struggled on and off this season. So it's going to be there's going to be a lot of position battles to watch because of this draft. Again, I didn't hate it, but I'm not exactly over the moon about it.
All right, Cody.
So for the Broncos, and again, the Chiefs and Chargers were my more higher rated grades. I think the Broncos are more of like a B to B minus kind of a draft as what they just had. A lot of it to echo what Matt's points were. But I will say, though, with the way that they drafted, from my perspective, some of these players are very high ceiling, high risk, high reward. Like Barron being opposite of Patrick Surtain II could be, again, another variation of the no-fly zone that the Broncos are usually known for having dual cornerbacks that can shut you down. So, I trust Vance Joseph a little bit in this situation to really get the guys that he's looking for, coach them up. Barron coming out of Texas, that's a hard program, especially that defense was a really tough, integral part that teams had to go against. And Barron played a big part of that. So I see him going and being next to Patrick Surtain II as a really good, like Robin to his Batman. And then RG Harvey, when I was doing my notes originally, I was like, why did they draft an undersized running back? You could have got Caleb Johnson from the 3rd round if you really wanted to reach for a little bit of a back with a bigger size to him. But then it made me think that like some other backs around the same size as like RJ Harvey is like, again, Ashton Genty, they're basically the same size. The only difference is Ashton Genty ran for all these yards and RJ Harvey didn't, but still a serviceable back and can protect the quarterback when it comes to dropbacks a little bit. And he's very elusive, which I think is what obviously Sean Payton loves to run when it comes to that offense. Another thing too, though, is he's probably like a variation of like a Darren Sproles when he was with the Saints. Obviously a very elusive, can, come out of punt returns and all that other stuff. So Pat Bryant, though, to me is a very interesting pick because of his size. He's not the fastest, he's not the slowest, but he's very sound technically. And from my perspective of what the Broncos really needed is they really needed a guy in that receiver room who can run routes very similar to Courtland Sutton. But obviously Courtland Sutton's on the last year of his deal, so you don't want to re-sign him. He's a little bit older, so you bring in a guy like Bryant, who kind of is a variation of Courtland Sutton, who can be a route technician. And if the ball is in his vicinity, he's probably going to come down with it. So, and it's a very good person to pair with Bo Nix. So, I think the defensive side, the fact that they didn't go for a ton of defensive players, I think, they already had a solid defense. They did get the edge rusher out of LSU, which I think is a very good selection, very good value for the 3rd round. So he would be an intricate part in that defense. But for me, the Broncos B to B minus is only because a lot of these picks are like, they got a high ceiling, high upside, but they also got a ton of risk behind them. And, it's not like, and a lot of you guys praise the Raiders for having a bunch of home runs, which I'm really glad about. But at the same time, with some of these picks that the Broncos did, you can't necessarily say that, but the excitement of, oh man, but if they pan out because of what Sean Payton can do and what Vance Joseph can do and what the offensive coordinator can get out of these guys, I think it makes it very exciting. And it makes it a very interesting upcoming season for the Broncos, who I don't want to say were a sleeper team in the AFC, but they had a sound defense. Really, the offense just needed a running back, which they just got. And who knows what else they're going to do in training camp and free agency as the rest of the offseason rolls on. But Broncos for me, B to B minus, I think. I think it's a lot of upside, but a lot of risk in this one as well.
Tim?
Well, first and foremost, both Matt and Cody had very great points and one that I can actually really agree with. So when we're talking about the 1st round pick, Jahdae Barron, Omari Hampton was still on the board. There was still a lot of talent. But then, like, when they made that pick, I was just like, oh, that's a game changer. Because, as you said, led the league in sacks last season. What's a great way to ensure that you have a great pass rush? You have a great secondary. And now you have PS2 on one side and you have Jahdae Barron on the other side. And they can be like on islands, almost like kind of like the Legion of Boom, the no-fly zone. You remember with the Jets when they had Revis and Cromartie, you can just leave both of those corners on an island and trust that they're going to lock down their receiver. And so that kind of really allows you to play, move the other pieces of the defense around and kind of really play and experiment with what they can do when you have 2 solid corners. Jahdae Barron was probably arguably one of the best corners in the draft. I know some have Will Johnson ranked higher. Some, consider Travis Hunter ranked higher. But for me, Jahdae Barron at 20 overall was a solid pick. But that's kind of where it kind of stops for me. The RJ Harvey kind of was a good pick, but I just kind of really felt like they could have got better value, in the second round than the RJ Harvey pick. But, one thing that we have learned with Sean Payton is he has a certain style that he likes to run, and he drafts players for his system, and they work. I mean, because coming out of college, yeah, Alvin Kamara was, kind of talked about, but he kind of wasn't at the same time. And then he went to the Saints and he became this great back. So I don't know if RJ Harvey is going to be quite the Alvin Kamara, but if they can get any kind of production out of him and to help take pressure off of Bo Nix, then I think the Broncos will still be in a similar situation that they were in last season and, playoffs and all that. But I got to give them probably like a B minus. And just because – like some of these were like the head scratchers. And I mean, I guess they needed a punter. They took one in the 6th round. I don't know. The Pat Bryant was, it kind of has some underrated value. He is a big body wide receiver like the other two have said. But overall, the only pick that really gets me excited was the Jahdae Barron. But I mean, as a Chargers fan, I don't want to see it. But when you think about the AFC West, you have to face Patrick Mahomes twice, who can absolutely destroy you in the blink of an eye, okay? You have Justin Herbert, who now has weapons. So what better way to counter that than to get the Jahdae Barron? And so that was like, I give that pick an A minus, but overall it's probably a B minus grade for me. And I would just like to have seen them kind of attack a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm actually maybe, I guess, a little higher on the Broncos than anybody. I give them like a high B, B plus. And I think it's kind of everyone touched kind of all the points why. I think you get someone like Barron with Surtain, and now Riley Moss cannot have to be a number 2, so I think that makes him better. I think you're looking at 3 really solid corners in a division full of great quarterbacks. So I love that pick. I think the RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant picks were 100% Sean Payton picks. And just given the respect that Sean Payton deserves from people until otherwise, have to agree that those picks are rock solid. To me, Pat Bryant is going to be his new Marcus Colston / Michael Thomas, a dude who you're just not going to think about, but somehow is always going to be wide open because Sean Payton knows how to do that. And he knows how to get wide open just as a receiver. So I think their top 3 picks, maybe not positional needs per se, or could have had better value, just given, national boards or rankings for players. But I think you get Barron, who just falls to you. I said it with the Chargers. Probably weren't going to take him, but when someone falls like that to you, you just take him. And so with that, on top of Sean Payton getting 2 absolute Sean Payton players, I just have to believe that they're going to be at least good, just given Sean Payton's history. He's given me no reason in his career to doubt him. And we watched RJ Harvey a little more than probably most, just given the Big 12. The dude's a stud. You can say what you want, but the dude carried the rock. He was a bell cow. He could do everything. So I like that pick. There are running backs I liked more, for sure. But Sean Payton has his guys. He has his type, and I think he was able to get those. And so that's why B to B plus. I can't give it higher because I think somebody mentioned it. Not as many home run picks or really like super safe picks, and maybe not enough needs covered. But when you get a true cornerback 1 who's going to come in and never be better than have to play more than cornerback 2, I think that's incredible in the league today. So I like their draft. I think Sean Payton got his guys. Sean Payton is slowly turning the Broncos into what everyone expects a Sean Payton team to be. And unfortunately, that's just a really damn good team. So I do think they left a little on the board, which is why B plus is all I can really do. But I still like their draft, just given the respect that Sean Payton deserves from me.
I kept it on the board. Everyone wish Mason a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mason.
Happy birthday, Mason.
Happy birthday, Mason.
Happy birthday, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Everyone in the chat, make sure you guys tell Mason happy birthday. Give him some love. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm with Matt. I didn't like this draft that much, but I'm not for the same reasons. I'm still a Sean Payton believer, right? So I didn't question the moves just based on, okay, Sean's not going to do a move just to make a move, right? So he kept trading back. And then I kind of told my brother during the draft, I was like, well, but he had so-and-so here. Like, we could have easily drafted so-and-so. Like, yeah, you're picking up picks to go along with it, but the Baron one, I'm giddy for that one, dude. I'm so stoked for this pick. I look back at the Bengals game, dude. Those receivers outside of PS2 was able to kind of keep Jamar Chase in check when he was on them, but there's only one PS2, right? Like, you can't have him guard all of these guys. T. Higgins had a heyday, just all over the field. Now you're inserting another guy, and you can put guys where they need to be. I want to make note though with Barron. Yes, he's a corner. I think they're going to move him around. I think he's going to play at multiple spots just based on his ability. And if you go back and you watch the college football playoff game, dude, he stood up Cam Scadaboo and just absolutely blew him up. And I think that's kind of the part I bet. And I'm, again, no inside knowledge, but I bet that's the game that Vance Joseph and Sean Payton and those guys were watching. And they wrote like, yes, we absolutely need this guy on our defense. So yes, he's a corner, but don't be surprised if you see him line up in the box, and he's going to be that run guy. He's going to be able to, set the tone, right? Like we were looking for those guys to set the tone. But I'm going C on this draft as well. I'm still not sold on RJ Harvey. I get it. We needed a running back, and there's so many other running backs that you could have gotten over this guy that would have got me a little more stoked. Maybe 4 weeks into the season, I'm going to sit here and say, yeah, I regret saying that. But for right now, I'm not completely sold on RJ Harvey. I am actually, I am really high on these edge rushers. I know Robinson didn't play much, but you got to have depth. Benito's asking for a lot of money. Is he going to get it? Personally, I hope so. But if you don't have that, I mean, you have Jonah Ellis. You have some of these other guys. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Robinson maybe does what Drew Sanders did and they move him inside and maybe give him some run there. That is a position of need. I know we signed Greenlaw, but you never know what's going to happen with him. But I'm not walking away from the draft saying we got what we needed, right? Like, it's okay, cool. Yeah, it didn't do it that much for me. Not like we have in the past with some of the picks that we've made as far as that goes. But I am excited about the direction, and I get the Barron pick. You're in the AFC. There's so many damn good quarterbacks and offenses in the AFC that you're going to have to go up against. And now just based on in our own division, right? Like, you're replacing Aiden O'Connell and some of those guys with now Geno Smith's in the division. So again, we still need to keep that defense where it's at, right? Like, you still got to keep your defense good. You still got to keep your defense up and running as far as that goes. But again, this didn't move it too much for me. I'm kind of sad about the RJ Harvey pick. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's just knowing that Hampton's in division now. So again, that goes back to what I said earlier. Now I'm going to have to keep an eye on what Hampton's doing. And, as a Broncos fan, or Bronco fans in general, are always going to look, what's RJ Harvey doing? What's Amarian Hampton doing? That's just the way the sports world works, right?
And then you're going to look and see Denver's giving up 102 passing yards a game and be like, okay, we're happy.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm still on board with, I think Estime is going to be the starting running back, and I think RJ Harvey is going to kind of slide, in. But I'm higher on Estime than some. I wish he would have gotten more run last year, but again, that's kind of where it's at as far as the draft grade goes. So that's going to wrap it up for our draft grades. I am extremely happy with how that segment went. Boys, nice job. And we kept it civil, right? We kept it civil. We had this guy over here saying,
we're not done.
We're just getting warmed up. All right.
Yeah.
We're just
No, I was about to talk some shit on the Raiders. I was going to say, hey, the Raiders finally won something. Like, they won our draft grade.
Hey, we got a couple of questions coming up about KC, so this is going to get a bit of a bloodbath here.
Yeah,
we do. So, but for the first segment, obviously the Raiders win this segment. So again, we should have had a little trophy, like a little banner,
Little Mark Davis
yeah.
wig. Little Mark Davis wig.
little Mark Davis wig.
Yeah.
We could have put a Mark Davis
Put it
wig on our bobblehead right here. So let's move on. Okay, again, we still got some topics to talk about, and we're rolling strong. Thanks everybody in the chat again. Love the interactions we have going on in there. I'll try to get the messages up as we can, but I don't want to kind of disrupt what we have the flow going so far. So we talked about the draft. Now let's talk about, who's under the most pressure. Obviously now we got 4 legit head coaches. You bring in Pete Carroll. I don't know. I can't speak for the other guys, but this is a Pete Carroll fan club, and we were absolutely torn and so sad.
I'm so hurt.
We were so hurt. We were like, Pete, how could you do this to us, man? So that poses a question. So which team? It doesn't necessarily have to be the team. We can go even individual. If you're having a hard time thinking of team, we can go individual. Matt, I'm going to go ahead and let you start with which team's under the most pressure.
So I actually went with the Raiders on this one, and here's why. Because can Pete Carroll and Geno Smith revitalize that entire organization? I know, Cody, the last time we were with the Shovicks, you and I talked about, how they got to where they are, starting with the John Gruden emails and then Rich Bisaccia. We talked to how they got to the position they're in now. So now it's like, can Pete Carroll and Geno Smith revitalize Vegas? Can they revitalize that organization? Because right now the Raiders are exactly what they describe themselves as, a black hole. That's what they are. I always said the Raiders and the Marines are alike. Their fan base is the few and the proud. So,
I like that.
Right. So now you have to look at this. Is Gene-T the answer? I know Tim had brought it up. Like, he sees a lot of Marshawn Lynch in Gene-T. I saw a lot of Ezekiel Elliott early in his career in Gene-T, which is why I thought Dallas would try and push up and get him. Because I know they're still trying to look for their Elliott again, their replacement for him. So, now is Gene-T the answer? And then can he stay healthy? Can Brock Bowers be consistent? He broke Mike Ditka's record that stood for 40, 50 years in the league. And he did it in 1 year. So he broke that record. So it's like, now again, the most pressure is, can Pete Carroll turn that organization around? Is Geno Smith the quarterback for the Raiders? Is Gene-T the answer to most of their problems on the offense? And, again, how good is Brock Bowers going to be? Is he going to go into that sophomore slump? Or is he going to be one of those prolific tight ends that, the AFC West is just really known for their tight ends, even when they had Darren Waller, Waller, Hunter Henry, Travis Kelce. At one point, we had Julius Thomas, and to this day will still be Denver's best tight end since Shannon Sharp. And now we have Evan Ingram, so now you have a league full of young quarterbacks, minus Geno Smith, who's a little bit older, young quarterbacks. Every head coach has at least been to one Super Bowl. So you have a lot going. I think the Raiders are facing that pressure right now.
Bro.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, Pete Carroll can revitalize he can revitalize a dead horse. That dude just wakes up full of energy. Like, I absolutely love Pete Carroll for them. But for me, the team under the most pressure, I'm kind of on the other end here. I think it's Denver. Truth be told, I think with the ahead of schedule success they had last year, I think their over-under win total last year was like 4 or 5 games, and they obviously ended up making that playoff run. But I think year 2, there's a little bit of pressure now. You've kind of set the bar high with Sean Payton in year 1 with his quarterback. Okay, well, kind of what you said with the, Brock Bowers in year 2, sophomore slump. Like, what's going to happen? Especially if you're not feeling very good about their draft. Does that apply a little more pressure, knowing that maybe you didn't upgrade the roster as much as you thought? So I think Denver's under pressure to just build off of what they did last year, setting that bar so high. Because Sean Payton always said, if I get my quarterback, sky's the limit. Well, year 1, it seems like you found your guy. What are you going to do year 2? I think early on, I know it's a segment down the road, but I think early on, they're kind of, with Sean Payton and Bo Nix, were expected to be kind of the dethroners of the division per se. So I think there's a lot of pressure there. We'll see. Is it a sophomore slump for Bo Nix like CJ Stroud, or is he going to build off of year one? So I think there's some pressure there. I think they handle it just fine, though. I just trust Sean Payton enough. But, yeah, I think Denver is under the most pressure.
Timmy?
All right, guys. This one for me is real simple, but I'm going to give you guys kind of a little history lesson in case maybe you guys don't follow Chargers fans. My team that is under the most pressure is the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a franchise that has never won a Super Bowl. They lost the only Super Bowl that they've ever played in back in the 90s, got their asses spanked by the 49ers. Okay? They went 14-2, fired their head coach. Phillip Rivers plays in the divisional round with a partially torn ACL. They end up losing to the Patriots. Then they fire their head coach, Marty Schottenheimer. And since then, I mean, it has just been disaster at trying to find a head coach. Since 2006, the Los Angeles Chargers have went through 18 head coaches, including Jim Harbaugh. But Jim Harbaugh is the 18th head coach since 2006. Okay, that is a lot of pressure. Now, there's also pressure in the sense that everywhere that Jim Harbaugh has went, he has turned that franchise around. Starting at San Diego State, he turned that franchise around. But, you know, last season, the first in Los Angeles, Harbaugh began the process of turning around the Chargers franchise. He has the mentality of building the team from the inside out, and he led the Chargers to 11-6 season. Unfortunately, they didn't get past the Texans in the first round. Now, I will say, with that being said, and the history of the Chargers, they are under the most pressure. Jim Harbaugh, you know, Dean Spanos over the years has, you know, since the Marty Schottenheimer era, has kind of become a cheap owner, okay? And he doesn't go out and spend a lot of money on head coaches. And this last season, he finally did. You know, he broke the bank. And he got Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortz at GM. You know, he actually kind of dipped in his pockets a bit. Now, all eyes are going to be on the Chargers in year two under Jim Harbaugh. He needs to build on the success he had in year one. If he doesn't make the playoffs or pass the wild card round, you know, so if they don't get past the first round or don't make the playoffs at all, we all know the media is going to spin it like, oh, they spend all this money on Harbaugh and he can't get the job done. And then that's going to lead to all the Charger fans out there like, oh, we should fire Jim Harbaugh. Stop. But he is under a lot of pressure. The Chargers are under a lot of pressure. You know, the Chiefs have been sitting at the top of the AFC West for so many years now. And I think, you know, Jim Harbaugh has that pressure of, you know, turning franchises around. So that for me is the most pressured team in the AFC West is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Cheap ownership. It could be a good fit here in St. Louis. I'm telling you. It would be a perfect fit here in St. Louis with everyone talking about the Cardinals ownership here in St. Louis. So, Cody.
So I'm going to say why the teams that just spoke, I don't think have the most pressure other than the one that I'm going to talk about. So the Raiders, I think the reason why there's not that much pressure, sure, Pete Carroll coming in, he's the most experienced head coach the Raiders have ever hired in a long time. But I think the reason why expectations and the pressure is low is because we just got rid of a first-time head coach in AP the last season. We also are coming out of an abysmal 2 seasons that we had with Josh McDaniels. And in fact, it was a season and a half. It didn't even last 2 full seasons. So I think, in my opinion, the expectations for the Raiders is on the floor. We had a decent draft. Let's see what we do. No pressure. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. For the Chargers, I think you guys have rich problems, which is like you guys just spent a bunch of money to get Jim Harbaugh, who was a guy that you guys campaigned for. You got him. He, to your credit, he is known for getting teams into prosperity. In Michigan, it took him a while. I think it took 8 seasons for him to even get to the national championship before he won it. And it really kind of solidified that he's a good head coach. He got San Francisco to 1 Super Bowl during his tenure. I think the Chargers, though, you guys basically were a very good team ran by a bad coach, but you brought in a good coach and the team ran, it looks like, just fine. I think I can make a better case that Justin Herbert is under more pressure than the Chargers team in general, just because Herbert needs to prove if he's top 5 or top 10 in the league? And is he a difference maker for that team? I can make a better argument for that than the Chargers team as a whole.
Okay. Hey, I can respect that.
For the Broncos, very much like what Cory had said and Matt, what you had said, Broncos overachieved. They were supposed to only win 4 games. They doubled that, got into the wild card, and came too soon. I think expectations are then, okay, let's see where we rank in the AFC rather than like, okay, we're at the top of the AFC. Because even against the Chiefs, the defense stood tall, but still you can tell the coaching separated it. Andy Reid's coaching separated the difference between the two teams, even when they went head-to-head. And I'm not even talking about the last regular season game because that was with a bunch of substitutes. I'm really just talking about head-to-head matchups when it's on the line. Andy Reid is the best head coach when it comes to last-minute plays and out-coaching you. In my opinion, the Chiefs are the most pressured team coming into the season because of losing the Super Bowl to the Eagles. Also, too, like you have Travis Kelce coming back who was going to retire. Now he's good to come back. You guys went through a very good draft. I'm actually very high on your guys' draft. But now that there was essentially like a chink in the armor, so to speak, and I think the fashion that the Chiefs lost in the Super Bowl is really prevalent because the question should be now, is there going to be a Super Bowl hangover for the Chiefs? Like, has the league now caught up to the Chiefs when it comes to pressure defense, when it comes to what they do for pass protection? Like, did the league now catch up to where the Chiefs are a little bit neutralized now? I don't think the Chiefs are going to go 15-2. Do I think they're going to be running the AFC? I do, but I think they have the most pressure because can they get back to prosperity or did they fall completely off the mountaintop? And my big question too, leading into the Super Bowl was if, let's say, Andy Reid and them did win the Super Bowl, then do all the Chiefs players that are ready to leave, do they retire? Like, does Andy Reid want to keep coaching? Does Travis Kelce finally retire? How much longer does Patrick Mahomes want to play? But now that they lost, it brings in different problems of like, can they do it again? And I don't know, because now you've gone through 6 seasons consecutive where you're playing all the way into February. Can they put it all together now? Or has the league caught up and now the Chiefs are going to be right in the thick of it with everyone? So in my opinion, the Chiefs have the most pressure coming into this season.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm actually, those are great points, but just following the Chiefs, I actually think that ass beating was the best thing that could happen to them. And like you said, we've played deep in the playoffs so long, and we've already won our mountain of Super Bowls. I still think we're playing with house money at this point. I actually don't think there is an ounce of pressure in Kansas City. Like at this point, we had a nice run, but that Super Bowl ass beating, I think, refocuses them. It's kind of the same thing with that Bucs Super Bowl. Like, okay, we're not invisible.
Mm-hmm.
We actually got to show up a little bit and focus a little bit more. Now, all your points I agree with, that there probably is some of that pressure applied, right? Like outside noise exists.
Mm-hmm.
You do want to be on the top. Are you a little worried that the top is now a little lower?
Right.
So I agree with those points, but I'm on the other end with the Chiefs. I think that ass beat, the way they lost,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be the same thing that the Buccaneers Super Bowl beatdown did. It's going to refocus them. They addressed the needs from what they saw in that Super Bowl, and I actually think it refocused them a little bit.
Yeah, I am still sticking with the Raiders, and here's why. Just based on you have a very impatient owner, right?
Yeah.
And I think you guys kind of have that going against you as far as I don't think he fires Pete after year 1, but if the results aren't there that he wants to see, so let's say I personally think adding Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly that's like 2 or 3 extra wins right there that you wouldn't have won last year, right? So now you close that gap a little bit. But is winning 6 or 7 games this season, is that enough for Mark Davis to say yes, or is it more of like, hey, you got to get this figured out now, or we got to do something? I think he panics, right? Is it because he's in Vegas? Is it because I don't know.
It's the fan base dictates what he does, and to prove further your point, Cory, when we had Rich Bisaccia, fans were like, let's give Rich Bisaccia a chance. We went with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler out of the Patriots because they just came off of a Super Bowl victory. We were riding high thinking, okay, we're ready to take a Super Bowl leap because we had just beaten. Sorry to bring this up, Tim. We beat the Chargers to get into the playoffs. And we had lost to the eventual representation of the AFC West. We didn't get Pasaccio. We get Josh McDaniels. We're thinking, Patriots way, we're going to be a championship caliber team. Then it falls by the wayside. We hire AP because when he took over, we looked way better, stronger defense. That was, again, a Raiders fan hire. Like, we're all right with AP. The wheels fell off by week 7. And he didn't even make it. He made it through the end of the season, but then there was internal rumblings about, he'll be back for a second season. We don't know if he'll be back for a second season. And a lot of that was because Raider Nation was upset by the way AP had coached the team and how they had looked, considering what they saw the half season that he filled in. And again, Mark Davis, you're right, is very impatient because he's kind of doing with what the fans ask him to do, which good ownerships don't really do that. Like Chiefs, for example, as much as I'm sure you guys clown on the ownership, the fact that they are winning Super Bowls despite what fans may say that they want or don't want tells me that ownership is just going to do what ownership does. Mark Davis is a guy that's kind of leading by his emotions. How does the fans take this? How do the fans take that? So not to hijack your point, Cory, but I do want to emphasize, to your credit, he is very impatient.
Yeah, actually, if I may, real quick, I just want to push back. I think on the counter side of that, I think they're actually going to be a little bit more patient than in recent memory. Tom Brady kind of coming in and being part owner, he knows what it takes to win Super Bowls. I mean, he's got 7 of them as a player. I think he'll tell Mark Davis hey, let's chill out. Pete Carroll's a Super Bowl winning coach. He took the Seahawks to back-to-back Super Bowls. He knows what it takes to get it done. And I think Tom Brady kind of mellows out Mark Davis just a bit there.
Yeah, and I think Pete's a smart enough guy. That had to be a conversation when him and Davis would speak, right, before hiring him. Pete would have had to been like, hey, be patient with me. This isn't an overnight thing. So that had to be already brought up to Mark Davis, right? The only way you're getting Pete Carroll is if you agree when Pete Carroll says, give me a couple years. Right. Now, again, results and stuff on the field can change that. But I have to think up front, Mark Davis and Pete Carroll had a conversation of saying, give me time. This isn't an overnight job. So again, it's Mark Davis who knows, but that had to be a conversation. And that had to be what really got Pete there, was knowing that he might actually be patient with me since we talked about it.
Yeah. Cory, go ahead and finish your point, bud. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you got this. That's what we were shooting for here. But yeah, and I get your point of Tom Brady being there, but at the end of the day, Mark Davis is the billionaire, and it's still kind of his show. Yeah, he may listen to Tom Brady to an extent, but I still think with it being his organization, his being the majority guy, history does repeat itself a little bit, and I hope not, because I'd hate to see Pete go out like that, honestly, for being coveted coach that he is. I was harsh. That's kind of why I didn't want to see him go to the Raiders, honestly, just based on how the ownership is there. Maybe, and I could be completely wrong, and you could be spot on with the whole Tom Brady mellowing things out. But I look at it as he didn't really give AP a chance. Made him think he was going to come back, let him do the end of season press conference, let him do all this just to turn around 2 days later and say, we're going in a different direction. That doesn't send a very good message to your locker room either. You have some Max Crosby. You got to keep Max happy, right? This is Raiders defense takes a huge tumble. If they were to lose Max Crosby, that defense goes
by the wayside. Yep,
exactly. So yeah, I get it. But I still think of all the ownership, I think Mark Davis is the most impatient one. And I think he wants results right away. And I get it. You're a proud franchise from when his dad had the team and what they were able to do back in their day. And it used to be a thing. You had some pride playing for the Raiders, and you haven't seen that since right before they leave Oakland, and now they go to Vegas. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as under the the most pressure. Does anyone else have anything on that before we move?
No, yeah, real quick.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, just real quick. This is what I see. I say Davis, I agree he gets impatient, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to say he gives Pete Carroll 2 seasons to turn the team around. Like, obviously, I feel like they may not make the playoffs this year. I feel like they'll be in playoff talks just because, again, it's Pete Carroll, like, what he can do with that organization. So I think this year they'll be in playoff conversation, and next year you might actually see them as playoff contenders. Now, if that doesn't happen, I think after 2 seasons, then Davis will be like, all right, man, next man up. That's what I see happening there.
I hope it's not only in 2 seasons. And the reason why is because it's been, I think, since the early 2000s, since the Raiders have had a head coach that's lasted minimum 3 seasons. And I think the last head coach was John Gruden in his first stint in the early 2000s before he was traded to the Bucs. He was, if I'm not mistaken, the last head coach that actually lasted for 3 or more seasons. And we've had some coaches that have done well for us, like Jack Del Rio in the 2016 season. He was there for about 2.5 years. Did okay. Even again with Josh McDaniels, he didn't even last 2 full seasons. John Gruden, even on this last stint, he didn't even last, I think, the full 4th season. I think he lasted 3 seasons. And after week 3, I think, or week 4, he was out because of his emails. So the fact that the Raiders have so much turnover at the head coaching position, like we're paying 3 or 4 head coaches right now on the payroll. 3 of them don't even coach the team anymore. That just tells you like the turnover of head coaching, and that's not a healthy organization. And further Tim's point, which is what I also wanted to drive home, is Tom Brady kind of more being involved in football operations is going to be better for Mark Davis because he can just be an owner now. Just sit back, let football do football things. You don't have to act like the football guru because his dad did that, which, he was very good at. But also let's not ignore that, Al Davis had some really shitty draft picks during his time as owning the Raiders as well. So, and again, I've been a Raiders fan my whole life. A lot of it was during the 2000s, the 2010s. We were dogs. We were dog water. Like, we were not good. And a lot of that was under the ownership of Al Davis. It's kind of had some sparks under Mark Davis, but this is the first season I feel like there's some adults running the operations in terms of like Tom Brady, Pete Carroll. We have some adults, some mature people. Let's run football operations. Mark Davis, you can just be kind of behind the scenes with your bad haircut and let the football people do the football things,
So
Yep. That'll never get old, his haircut.
It really won't. So let's get to our next one. Obviously, we know who's ran the division now for a little while. Cody, go ahead and start us off with who is the most equipped team right now to maybe dethrone the Chiefs this year?
I think with the draft that we just talked about, and again, I'm already saying that I believe that the Chiefs are under the most pressure heading into it. I think the Chargers today, with how the draft is, are probably the team that's most poised to take out the Chiefs. If things come to fruition, like what the Chargers are hoping for with Amari and Hampton, Trey Harris, like we just talked about, their offensive line, defense is a little suspect to some respect, but let's see what they do during, leading into training camp and the rest of the preseason. And then also, what are the Chiefs going to look like with how their team is? So I think if there's a team that is most likely to dethrone or most equipped to beat Kansas City, in my opinion, it'd be the Chargers today. I wanted to go with the Broncos, but I mean, defense is a really good thing. Don't get me wrong. That's what's really going to neutralize that offense of the Chiefs. But I just feel like the Chargers can get home to Mahomes. I feel like they can get enough pressure to where they can disrupt that offensive rhythm. And I think the Chargers, with Justin Herbert, with the weapons that they've added, I think stand the best chance to be able to go into a shootout with the Chiefs and beat them if they had to. So in my opinion, my answer would be the Chargers today.
Wow.
Matt,
Thank you, Cody.
Matt, what about you?
So this might be because I'm biased, but I said the Broncos. Now, I know we talked about the draft and I said they were a C, but not because I questioned the talent. I think pretty much for the most part, they drafted talented players. But, if you look at the first matchup of the season, in Arrowhead and Austin, you may agree to this or not. The first half of that game in the first matchup, Denver was all over KC. I mean, KC barely got across midfield in the first half. And, then the penalty happens and that just kind of like sucked the life out of Denver after that. And it was all KC. But for them to go into Kansas City with a rookie quarterback, and Kansas City is a very tough environment to play in. And the Chiefs were undefeated, in that game. Going into that game, they were 6-0, I believe. They were 6-0. Bo Nix comes in as a rookie quarterback with, and the offensive roster wasn't anything to write home about. And he went in and put up 2 back-to-back scoring touchdown drives and beautiful throws. The last one to Cortland Sutton. I mean, he beats Trent McDuffie, perfectly thrown ball, touchdown. They go up 14-3. So with that momentum, with that mentality, like to be able to stand toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes and know that you can compete with them, that's morale boosting right there. That's that mentality like, all right, I can compete in this league. And Denver's offense, again, that was just a statement like we can compete with them. Question our offense if you want, but we can compete. And then one of the things I know we talked about keeping Pat Mahomes off the field, but when if he's on the field, and how do you beat him? You have to be fast and physical. Jahdae Barron, one of the things that I did like about Barron was how physical he is. He bumps he bumps receivers off of their routes. He throws the timing between receiver and quarterback off. He's so good at it. And one of the things he excels at is he can bait any quarterback into thinking there's a read there that's not there, and then he jumps the route. So that's one of the things I'm excited to see is that how our corners are going to match up against his receivers. They're fast receivers, but we have physical corners. So I feel like Denver, with their physicality on defense and the young roster on offense, I feel like they're most equipped to take out the Chiefs.
Timmy?
I like it. Okay. So I'm going to kind of stay on a little biased here coming from a Chargers fan, but let me explain this real quick. Jim Harbaugh is in his second season with the Chargers. Historically, dating back to the days when he was the coach of the San Diego Aztecs, in college, his teams tend to take a leap in year 2. Now, if you remember, he was the coach of the 49ers. Like Cody said, he led them to a Super Bowl. His record with the 49ers is 44-19 in 4 seasons with 3 straight NFC Championship games, including taking the team to the Super Bowl in his second season as the head coach. Now, fast forward to this season, second season. Is history going to repeat itself? And I think it very well could. The Chargers have what it takes to beat the Chiefs. They have a very solid defense. Now they have, a very great run game, good O-line, superstar quarterback, Jim Harbaugh as the coach, and then the receivers that the Chargers drafted in Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, drafted in tight end Arondé Gatson. I think the playmakers are on offense are there. So if this becomes like a shootout, I feel like the Chargers are now kind of equipped a little bit more with they can stay with the Chiefs offense and they can stay with the Chiefs on the defensive side. So for me, I think Jim Harbaugh came to LA for a reason. He came to win Super Bowls. And one thing I want to point out about Jim Harbaugh is he was on the Rich Eisen show the other day. And he said he woke up at 3 a.m. And he said, I have to get Justin Herbert into the Hall of Fame. And he goes on to explain the way to do that is by winning multiple Super Bowls with Justin Herbert. I think that poises him. I think that motivates Jim Harbaugh to lead his team. And I think we're going to see a better version of the Chargers, and we're going to see the best version of Justin Herbert that we've ever seen in the NFL.
I'm going to go last since it'll be from a Chiefs point of view.
That's fair. And Timmy, I hear you, but I think the Chiefs and Broncos have the 2 best defenses still in this division. And I do give Denver the slight edge on defense. So I am going Denver. And expectations this year, I think it's a little different. I know everyone talks about sophomore slumps with like CJ Stroud and whatnot, but he has an OC. Sean Payton is the head coach and OC. So I don't see that there may be a slight regression, but I think with his ability to run the football as well, I really hope he's not our leading rusher again this year. Then we may have a different discussion as we maybe do episode 4 of the AFC West Roundtable. But I think their defense is equipped, and I think we don't have to worry about shootouts with the Chiefs. I think the days of the Chiefs being able to put 30 on Denver, which I think even Patrick Mahomes, some of his worst games statistically
Frickin' Justin Simmons
are against Denver. And even without Justin Simmons last year, Denver's defense was able to hold their own. Now, so I'm not throw the second game out the window. That doesn't count. Okay, I'm talking about the first game. All right, and even previous seasons. But I do like Denver's defense to hold their own against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and I do think Denver's offense is good enough I know the question with the running back, but we had Evan Ingram, and I think Evan Ingram's going to be probably a top 5 tight end in the NFL this year with Sean Payton. Just based on what Sean Payton can do with tight ends and how he's going to be able to, and hopefully, please stay healthy. Again, that's all. We're talking like everyone's going to stay healthy. But then we talk about Dre Greenlaw, Bunga, the safety that we got. I like those pieces. Now, I may not agree with their draft and how they went about their draft, but I think he's going to find a way to get those guys integrated. And again, I'm giddy on Barron, and I think Barron's going to be a huge game changer for that defense. So for that reason, I am going with Denver. And when we get to our predictions, you'll see why. So.
Yeah. So
Hey, real
surprisingly,
quick before I say,
go ahead.
I was just going to push back on Cory for just a second. You want to bring up the Broncos defense and how good they are compared to the Chargers. And I just want to point out that the Chargers defense, was really solid last year, 13.6 points a game or something like that. I mean, they didn't allow very many points. And they were one of the few teams that actually can contain the Kansas City Chiefs. Where they lacked last year was their offense. That the offense tend to sputter without that solid run game. So I just want to push back real quick and say, don't count out the Chargers defense just because they didn't go get like superstar playmakers like Jahdae Barron. I think the Chargers defense will still hold their own in the AFC West.
Yeah, and I think they still will. But I mean, at the same time, it's kind of like, I know Bosa, you guys subtract that, so that may actually make your defense way better, just losing Bosa and letting him go because he
was never on the field, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, I still have question marks on your secondary. I love Derwin James, but then like some of your corners and stuff, like they're younger, and what they're able to do. And I'm not saying that the Chargers are going to be, a booty call or anything of the division. I still think the Chargers are going to be good. I like this Broncos roster compared to where we have been in the past and what we've been able to do. And I'm going into it as if we're healthy and Dre Greenlaw gets back to where he was at prior to the injury in the Super Bowl, I think that elevates Denver's defense because now we have a run stopping linebacker that we've been lacking. Our linebackers have been complete dog shit. I hate our linebackers, and that still upsets me that we didn't quite address that in the draft. But if he can stay healthy, that gives us another added piece. Now I think more pressure's off of Riley Moss, where we're not going to have him guard. We're not going to have him on T. Higgins, where T. Higgins can go off for 14 catches for a game. Mm-hmm. So again, there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts to it. So if it goes how I think, and Vance Joseph got a little more aggressive last year because he knew he could, and what we're able to do with Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis was really well, as and what he was able to do. So again, that's kind of where I'm at as far as that goes. But I still think the Chargers are going to be up there, but I like Denver right now.
Yeah, surprisingly, the two teams, because this isn't to win the division, it's who I think. I'm at the point of view of not most equipped to beat KC. I'm going to give the Kansas City Chiefs point of view of like who I would rather not face. And honestly, I think the two teams that worry me the most out of our division opponents, it's Denver and actually the Raiders.
Interesting.
Yeah, sorry, Timmy. It's not a shot at you. I'm actually.
You'll eat
Chargers can't even make the list.
Yeah,
Chargers can't even make the list.
Yeah,
he's going to eat those words.
No, so it is the Chargers I'm worried about the least for sure. I still think they're going to be better this season than the Raiders overall, but this is just who I think just won't match up well or will match up better with the Chiefs. And it might be a Pete Carroll love. I also love Harbaugh though, so like we just have a division of coaches I do absolutely love. To be honest, I'm a big Michigan guy. Anyway, I think the biggest I'm gonna pick Denver. I still think Raiders aren't quite there, but even the Raiders as dog shit have always played the Chiefs the best anyway. That's kind of where my point of view is coming on that. Like even when the Raiders are just dog water, as Cody said, still great games, still close games, right? Like somehow, some way, and it could just be the rivalry, right? Maybe there's still some hatred in these players these days. I think you see it less and less, but I think it's still there. I think Max Crosby's mind games with Patrick Mahomes, it's awesome to watch. I think it does rattle him a little bit. Like even if he's not getting sacks, he's still hitting Patrick Mahomes in the chest every play.
Yep.
And Patrick Mahomes can say what he wants, but it's gonna piss me off after a certain amount. Like, stop. You know what I mean? But I still think Denver. And this isn't disrespect to Chargers defense, but I think Broncos have the best defense in the league. I mean, they led the league in sacks last year. They're not going to get any worse at that. They might even be able to generate a little more pressure given the coverage that they've added. You can, they were doing it with their front four. Now you can disguise a little bit. You can send an extra guy knowing you have 2 lockdown corners. And even last year, I mean, they were a blocked field goal away of going into Arrowhead.
Mhm.
Like, plain and simple. Like, it was that close already. I'm a big Bo Nix guy. I was before he was drafted. I hate that he went to Denver. He was
Same.
one of my favorite ones. I think even on my list, I think I actually rated him higher than Caleb Williams. That's how much I like Bo. I like accurate quarterbacks, and he was pinpoint, and you pair him with Sean Payton. It's a disaster. I think they're the best equipped to not only beat Kansas City, but I think they're the most equipped to actually win the division this year. Truth be told, that's how much. And again, I'm a defensive guy, so if I think a team has the best defense in the league, and you're going to put out an offense that I believe will be good enough, that I would be arguing against myself if I didn't say something like that. So I think it's Denver. I love their defense. Like, I hate Denver, but I catch myself enjoying watching some Denver games because they're just so damn good at defense. So I think Denver. It was between the Raiders just because we always play good, and I think Genty getting 40 carries a game against the Chiefs is actually going to just be annoying as hell.
So then, with that, let's roll right into our AFC West predictions. Timmy, I'm gonna give you the honors of doing the AFC West predictions first.
Oh, okay. We're not going with the great Poise for Greatness. Okay. Standings. So I thought it isn't. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I got the predictions right here. Okay, so we're gonna start bottom top and go work our way to the top. Las Vegas Raiders is sitting fourth. I'm sorry, Cody. No disrespect. I do feel that they had a solid draft, but I gotta say that they're gonna.
That intro video that you wanted? No.
Ah, come on.
Taking my ball and going home.
Hey, I think they do turn it around some, and we were talking about it, messaging back and forth, and you said that they went 4-13 last season. I'm actually going to give them 2 wins, a 2-win total increase. I think they're going to go 7 or 6.
I know. I was like, are you saying we're only going to win 2 games? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. They're going to have a 2-win increase. I think they're going to win 6. They're going to go 6-11. And I'm going to do one better with a possibility of going 7-10. So
wow.
I don't think that they're quite ready per se, but I will say that they are going to they're going to make some improvements. Sitting third, sorry to the Broncos, but you guys are going to go 10-7. I know that defense is great, but I just think there's going to be a few games that just don't go your way. Maybe it's versus Kansas City, and the refs are still in the back pocket of the Chiefs. But you're going to go 10-7, and the Chargers and the Chiefs are both going to go 12-5. And I actually have Kansas City still winning the division because what it's going to come down to is Chiefs have a harder strength of schedule, and maybe they win like. I see the Chiefs and the Chargers splitting the series, and I think the strength of schedule will be in the favor of the Chiefs. They have a harder schedule than the Chargers do. So for me, it's going to go Kansas City, LA, Denver, and Las Vegas.
Bro.
Yeah, I got the Chargers finishing last.
Get out of here!
No, I do. I got them going 8-9.
There is no way that we decrease our win total from last season.
Austin is a closeted Raiders fan. I dig it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I was
expecting a clean sweep of last place.
There's a saying that we say a lot in our household and friend group, and it's the Chargers find a way to Charger. I know, you brought in Harbaugh to get rid of that, and I do like Harbaugh, but at the end of the day, there's always a team who overperforms and underperforms, and I got the Chargers. I'm not there with them. I got the Raiders next. I got them going 9-8. I just love what they did. I love what Pete's going to do. I think he adds more than 2 or 3 wins. I really do. I think Geno's a good enough quarterback. Like, it's going to kind of look like he did at Seattle. Like, they're going to be okay-ish, and they're going to win some games. They're going to be competitive in a lot of games, and I don't know. I trust in Pete getting a few more wins for them. I actually got the Chiefs next. I got Chiefs going 12-5. Like you said, they just have a hard schedule, man. And I think Cody nailed it. I do think the rest of the league is caught up to the Chiefs, especially in the AFC. I like the Bills. I like the Ravens. Like, all these teams are really good. And all these teams can kind of get us in the regular season. This year could pile up, and they all could get us in the regular season. I mean, we usually just get them in the postseason, but regular season, like, it might catch up. And then I got Denver winning it, going 13-4. I think they're only going to have to get to about 20 points a game offensively to be legitimate.
Wow.
I think with the offense they have, with Sean Payton running the show, 20 points a game is going to be a cakewalk. Obviously, barring defensive injuries for Denver, their defense is going to be historic this year, especially if Greenlaw stays healthy. That's really been a weak spot for them. You add a linebacker like just one linebacker like Greenlaw. You would have liked to add more. Don't get me wrong. You're putting a lot on one linebacker to kind of man the group for a season with injury problems, but I like that. I like that addition for them. So I got Denver winning it all at 13-4.
In my defense, Tim, I told you well before the show came on that my brother would say something that was going to be just completely out of fucking left field. And
Hey, so real quick, I just want you to save this. This is May 7th, 2025, the first episode of the AFC West Roundtable, and I want you to make sure that this video is saved. That way, at the end of the season, we can look back and see how well we did, and that way we can tell Austin here that he just ate his words for saying that the Chargers were going to finish dead last in that division.
Oh, hey, man, that's what this is about. I'm not going to repeat what everyone else in the world's saying. That's boring. Like, think for yourself, and that's what I do.
I mean,
Tim is starting to get them anime veins, man.
Huh?
I said Tim is starting to get them anime veins, them little X's on your forehead.
That's right. Cory came to Austin before the show and goes, "You better pick my Broncos or I'm shutting this down."
No. And I didn't even tell him that I told you guys that he was going to say anything like this. Like, I know him, obviously.
Right.
So
obviously.
Again, I told you there's going to get to a point, and I honestly, this is later than I thought. I literally thought it was going to be earlier on in the show, but I told you he is going to say something that's going to be, it's going to be your WTF moment. Timmy, your face when he said that was the WTF moment.
He kind of looked like he thought I was joking for a second, and then that's why I doubled down.
I kind of really did. I was like, there is no way that I'm hearing this properly. And I'm just sitting here and I was like, and then you're just like going on with it. I'm like, oh no, he's being for real. And I was like, okay,
for real.
That's why I will say
today. Like, okay.
You have every right to make me eat my words at the end of the year, but if I'm anywhere close for these records, you guys also have to give me my respect. All right.
Hey, I will. I'm not going to say I'm going to wear a Chiefs anything, but I will eat my words, and I will admit I was wrong if I'm wrong on any of these takes.
He'll get a KC haircut. He'll get KC engraved in his hair.
That's a negative. My fiance cuts my hair, and there is no way that she would ever cut KC in my hair.
Yeah.
Cody, you're up.
All right. So I love that Austin basically had my Raiders in third place, and I don't have them in third place. I wanted to, but I got to taper expectations. Do I think Pete Carroll's going to come in and make this football team look like an actual professional football team? I do. But the record I have them in fourth place is I'm going to say that they're going to double their win total. They're going to be 8-9. I actually think that we can all agree that while expectations are low, if they had a pretty good leap season, like a leapfrog of a season of like, you know, a surprising AFC team, we wouldn't be surprised just because Pete Carroll turns programs around. And I'm hoping that Pete Carroll works his magic on the Raiders and we look like a respectable football team. The bones are good, so I'm hoping that, you know, we get the most out of it. But I'm tapering your expectations. I'm saying fourth place for the Raiders at 8-9. And then I have the Denver Broncos finishing third place at 10-7. Here's why. I think their defense is going to be absolutely elite, but I'm concerned on the offensive side if there's enough weapons to get into these shootouts. When this defense, let's assume the Broncos offense just sputters. Can this defense sustain going back on in the field again and again and again on those times where the offense doesn't have anything going? Can the Broncos sustain that? And I just think that they've got a pretty difficult schedule. I wouldn't say it's the hardest. It's not the easiest. I think it's right in the middle. There's a lot of questionable teams that have also improved on their schedule that make me wonder, can the Denver Broncos get over that, or are they going to be the same team that they were last year, which is very respectable. So I have them finishing third place at 10-7. And then I have the Chargers and Chiefs finishing tied for first and second, both finishing at 11-6. I think, truthfully, that the Chargers and the Chiefs are, at this point today, and again, we don't know how the rest of the season is going to go, but today, I think they're the most matched team. And we were talking about Broncos defense are the toughest ones to face against the Chiefs, which I completely acknowledge and respect. But I think the Chargers defense, in my opinion, is just strong enough to cause issues enough to where they can get stops. Whether or not they can sustain that over 60 minutes of football, I don't know. But I do think that the Chargers have the offense to keep up with the Chiefs. And I think with adding a Trey Harris, having Ladd McConkey, having Omarion Hampton, I think that this offense could look a little bit more explosive. And the fact that Harbaugh likes to run the ball, and we haven't even talked about that they added the veteran running back, Najee Harris, who is a pretty good complementary running back that could be a 1-2 punch for this offense. And again, with the way that Harbaugh loves to run the ball, I would be concerned if I were the Chiefs having to face that twice a year. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I couldn't find a way to say that they're going to make this large fall. Do I think that they're going to win 15 games? No, they have the toughest schedule in all of football as of today constructed, with games that they've got to play in Philly, Detroit. They've got to go into New York Giants, who just upgraded their defense. So I'm like, how is that going to look? And that's going to be a road game when the schedule comes out. So I just think there's a lot going against the Chiefs, but what I've learned the last several seasons with seeing the Chiefs win another AFC title is don't count out Patrick Mahomes and don't count out Andy Reid, especially Andy Reid. To think a football team is going to come into the season unprepared and not ready for battle for 17 or 18 weeks, Andy Reid will for sure get these guys rolling. So I don't really have first or second between the Chargers and Chiefs. They're going to have a tie record. So I would say 11-6 to both, and it's either going to be first or second, but they're going to be.
You got to pick like who takes the AFC West and who.
I think the Chiefs then take the AFC West and the Chargers second place, just because the Chiefs have been here before, and respectively, none of our teams have really gotten that AFC West crown in a long time. For the Broncos, I think your guys' last crown was when Peyton Manning was on the team. Chargers, I think it was when Phillip Rivers was still on the team. So, and the Chiefs have been running it literally the last 10 years. I can't make a valid argument to say the Chiefs won't do it again, even though I think the NFL is catching up. In our division, the Chiefs are still the top of the mountain until otherwise. So,
I never thought I would actually agree with a Raiders fan, but Cody, spot on that. And I respect that take. And out of the five of us, he's my new best friend.
He wants that intro video real bad.
Hey, that was a fire intro video. If you guys are just tuning in, you'll definitely have to go back and watch the beginning of the episode, because our man Cody here produced a fire intro video for us. So,
Timmy, I'm going to get to you in a second. Matt, you're up.
So I'm going to go. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of that was good, Tim. I'm going to go with the Raiders finishing last, but I'm going to say they're going to go 8-9. I do think they drafted very well. I think they're going to put up a fight. I think, I've said it on other podcasts before, that Antonio Pierce did give them that fighting spirit. He gave them that competitive edge because he's an offensive guy, and defenses are very high-spirited, competitive, punch you in the gut, punch you in the mouth type of people. So I think he gave them that competitive edge. I think they're going to be competitive. I just don't think they're ready to advance up in the West just yet. So I have them going 8-9. At third, I have the Chargers going 10-7. Just because in Justin Herbert's history, I think last season was his first full season without injury since his rookie year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I don't remember the last time he actually played a full season without undergoing some kind of surgery or being put on IR for like 4 or 5 weeks. And
I mean, you are right on that, Bud, but I am going to push back just a little.
Bro, let me finish my take first.
Hang on, I'm just gonna just on the Justin Herbert. He didn't have a head coach that was competent enough to put an offensive line around him. You know, Jim Harbaugh went and spent a top 5 pick on a right tackle, Joe Alt, and now they got the left tackle and the right tackle. So I think the protection is going to be there a lot better than what it has been up till this point. So
I don't know about that. I think, and I'm sorry, Matt, I'm not trying to hijack it. I think this
nobody
is why,
wants to play with me.
I think this is why, like, Justin Herbert arguably is probably the most under pressure in terms of a player, because I can understand he didn't have a coach that supported him, but he did have 2 really good offensive coordinators in Kellen Moore and Mike Lombardi when they brought him in to make him have this big leap. And there were still moments where, like, is Justin Herbert the guy? And then on another Sunday, oh my gosh, he's the best thing that's happened to this franchise in a long time. And then other weeks, it's like, where did Justin Herbert go? Is he really a guy? And when you're having segment questions on like ESPN or whatever the sports program where they're questioning was, should they have selected Tua over Herbert? Like, we're still asking that question. I then have to question the pedigree of the quarterback, because if it's supposed to be in the echelon of Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes is clearly, or Josh Allen, who they're clearly making a difference on their team, like, I have to then question, can Justin Herbert do the same? And I couldn't agree with coaching, because he's had offensive coaches that have made them look good, in my opinion.
Matt, go.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah. So, sorry, no, I'm trying to find my place again. Yeah. So again, I feel like Herbert, if he could stay healthy, I see them going 10-7. It's really going to depend on the health and how well that line does protect him. And then, yeah, you know, you have Najee Harris, who I think is the only running back to rush for 1,000 yards in all 4 of his,
seasons.
4 of his first, for all 4 of his seasons. You know, so you have that going for him. And then their second, like I said earlier in the show, I feel like their secondary is very underrated. However, like, you know, Cory said, they're very young. Derwin James leads that secondary. I love Derwin James, even though he's a Charger, but they're a very young secondary. And part of the problem with the Chargers, and again, said it earlier in the show, is their inconsistency. They would have a great first half, stopping the run, getting to the quarterback. Second half would happen, and they just fall apart, or vice versa. You know, they would have a terrible first half and then turn it on in the second half. So it depends. Is the defense going to be consistent? I have them going 10-7. Second place, I have the Broncos going at 11-6. I feel like there's still room to grow there. I don't think they're going to, you know, Cody, you said it best. They're not ready for the top of the mountain yet. They're almost there. I feel like a few more pieces and they'll get there. But just the way that Bo Nix competes, the confidence, you know, and it really showed in the Bills game where nothing was going right, but he didn't put his head down and sulk. He put the team on his back. He did what he could. He tried to make plays with his legs. He tried to hit his receivers. You know, they were dropping passes left and right, especially on third downs. So he tried his best, couldn't make it happen, but you have a confident young QB. The offense is young. The defense is, you know, again, I think we all said it. The defense is probably going to be the number 1 defense in the league this year. And then, you know, the Chiefs you can never rule them out. And just like when plays break down, when the game is going south, they find ways to win. I know everyone likes to say the refs, but your team needs to play better. That first game in Denver, again, I said it before. They had him in the first half. In the second half, Denver only put up 25 total yards of offense. If you think you're going to win a football game with 25 yards of offense, you're fucking high, you know. And then, you know, with the playoff game with the Texans, yeah, the roughing the passer calls. But if you think you're going to win a football game, if you let your quarterback get sacked 8 times and miss 2 field goal attempts, you're fucking high, you know. Right. So you never rule the Chiefs out. I have the Chiefs going. I got the Chiefs going 13-4 in this one.
Yeah, I do want to say that this Broncos team, it gives me very much not the Eagles Super Bowl team, but the year before when we beat the Niners, where Chiefs had that elite defense, struggled a little bit on offense, but did enough to win games and really end up winning the Super Bowl. This Denver team has given me those vibes. An elite defense with just enough off. I trust Sean Payton and Look, Bo Nix is a second-year quarterback, but he's still old as shit. He's got a lot of football under his belt. So I trust Sean Payton and Bo Nix to pull out a lot of these games, these slobber knockers, these close ones where everyone's on the fence on. I fully believe Sean Payton and Bo Nix pull those out. They're giving me very much 2 years ago Chiefs vibes with elite defense and enough offense.
And then look at 2015. Peyton Manning had his worst year, right? The defense kind of carried it. The defense in the Super Bowl. Denver's not going to the Super Bowl this year. I'll tell you that now. Cody, I'm sorry. I'm not giving the Raiders that many wins. I know everybody.
Not you too.
Hey, take away his intro. Take away his intro.
Yeah, give it back.
So I do have the Raiders obviously fourth, and you're gonna see improvement. Like I'll say that right now. Not enough. You're still gonna win 6 games. Maybe I'll be not 7. They'll go 7-11.
That's a nice backhanded compliment. Thank you.
Yeah,
you got 7 games. You're good, right?
Yes. Yeah, 7-10. Sorry. And then Timmy, because I wasn't 100% in love with your attitude earlier, I'm docking the Chargers 2 games because I had them and Denver tied at 12. But I'm giving the Chargers 10-7, and then I had Denver in second. And it goes back. Look, we can't.
Hey, don't dock the team for my actions.
We're not, and I'm not going to sit here and I hear all of it. Even the national media talks about the Chiefs, right? National media, the Chiefs window, this. I'm not that. Miss me with that. The Chiefs window is still there as long as 15's playing, and as long as Andy Reid's there. The Chiefs are going to win the division. Okay, It's just that they're always prepared. They may not show it all the time, but they're prepared. And again, I'm not going to be one of those guys that says the Chiefs' downfall was the Super Bowl. I do think it gives them a little shot. I do. This is going to be the first year, and I'll say it now. This is going to be the first time Patrick Mahomes isn't going to make the AFC Championship game, though.
Ooh.
I will say that.
Okay.
So we'll put that on May 7th. I said it. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to make the AFC Championship game. But again, and that's going to lead right in here. Let's move right along to our last one. And then, is the AFC West the best division? Timmy, round it out.
Okay, so for me, I feel the AFC West can have a great year for one of many reasons. Okay, but first and foremost, they have a great amount of experience at head coach. 3 out of the 4 head coaches have won a Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. He went to a national championship. He knows what it takes to get to the big game and win one. He's been to a Super Bowl before. You know, Harbaugh's only had 3 losing seasons as a head coach since he became one in 2004. None in the NFL. So Harbaugh has not had a losing season in the NFL. Next up, we have Sean Payton, who's a great coach who turned around that Saints franchise after Hurricane Katrina. He led the Saints to a Super Bowl and won one. You know, he won one with Drew Brees at quarterback, and now he's got Bo Nix, who many are comparing Bo Nix to a young Drew Brees. So that's a very great compliment. And, you know, his brilliant mind when it comes to football is truly amazing. In the 2 years as head coach of the Broncos, he's really turned that franchise around, in my opinion. And, you know, he drafted Bo Nix. Like I just said, he reminded of an early Drew Brees. And we all know what Peyton and Brees did together. Next up, we have Pete Carroll. The Las Vegas Raiders won't be the same team they have been the past few seasons. This team is hungry, okay? They're very hungry, guys. And, you know, Pete Carroll is a great coach. He only has 4 losing seasons in the NFL, one of those being in 1994 as the Jets head coach, so we won't count that. But, you know, he's gone back-to-back Super Bowls with the Seahawks, winning one. You know, unfortunately, in the second one, if he would have just handed the ball off, he would have been a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach. But, you know, in college, he led USC to back-to-back national championships. I honestly feel that the Raiders can be a borderline playoff team either this year or next year. And then here we go. The GOAT, okay, Andy Reid. Not much to be said about this man other than greatness, absolute greatness. He is arguably one of, if not the best coach He has a massive coaching tree. I mean, just look it up, guys. Look up his coaching tree, and you'll be impressed. A lot of his assistants have gone on to become head coaches themselves at some point. All Andy Reid does is win ball games. That's all he does. He wins. Enough said. He has been coaching either as an assistant or head coach since before I was even born. And all he does is win, win, win. Since becoming a head coach in 1999, he only has had 3 losing seasons, none of those with the Chiefs. He has only missed the playoffs 6 times in that span. His record is 273, 146, and 1, and a postseason record of 28 and 17. He has been to 6 Super Bowls as a head coach and won 3 of those, all with the Chiefs, of course. So, yeah, when you ask me why is the AFC West the best division, why could they be the best division in football? It starts with the coaches. The amount of greatness all the coaches has in this division will make the AFC great and has the potential to have 3 of the 4 members in the playoffs once again.
Cody, good luck.
Well, I mean, I'm going to just echo what Tim said. So at any given time, there's an argument that could be made, a valid, like realistic possibility that 3 out of these 4 teams are going to be in the AFC postseason in some form or fashion. And there is a scary scenario. And I'm not trying to say that the
all
Raiders
4, baby.
are going to, yeah, there is a probability that all 4 can get in there. The Raiders maybe need to do it in about 10 wins and have a lot of things fall our way. But the fact that at any point, 3 out of these 4 teams in this division could take these AFC spots, again, to echo Tim's point, a lot of these head coaches previously been to a Super Bowl. 3 out of the 4 have won a Super Bowl. And not only that, there are Hall of Fame-esque players on all 4 teams at some form or fashion. And not only that, but these teams are etched in just nothing but legacy, from championships to playoff wins to players that have played there. Like, it is not only just this season, it is steep further than that. And the 4 of us, or 5 of us when we had Matt, were able to put together a show to just talk about the excitement from our drafts, where we all kind of had a consensus that all 4 of our teams hit relatively to our draft picks, and we have a lot of trust in our head coaches going forward. So don't get me wrong, like, the NFC North is probably the top of the mountain right now, but there's a lot of debate that could take place that a lot of those teams may take a step back, because you can't duplicate that 2 seasons in a row. But the AFC West has been relevant for a large part of it. Credit to the Chiefs for doing so, but also to the Broncos, Chargers, and at some points the Raiders for bringing that excitement, and it always being somewhat of a battle until the end of the season, when it's always been the Chiefs. I'm going to acknowledge that, but there's always this excitement and always this competitive fire spirit with every team. And the reason why is because, again, all 4 of these teams at some point could strike lightning in a bottle, and an argument could be made a championship is going to come out of this division. Just depends on what team, when they get into the big dance, how far is it going to go? Because put our teams up against like the Texans, the Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens, I think a lot of us would make good cases why our respective team could hang with them, those in the playoff contention. I won't say that the Raiders are a Super Bowl contender, but if you want to argue Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, you make an argument why they are probably better than those respective teams in the AFC to probably jockey for a Super Bowl position. So that's why I'll say the West is the best division in football.
The West is the best.
No, I agree. The West is the best. I think you guys were spot on pointing out just like coaches and quarterbacks. You ever heard me before? I think the biggest thing for franchises is your head coach, quarterback.
Yep.
You can have a good coach and a good quarterback, but they also have to mesh. Like, it matters. So when you're talking about the AFC West worst quarterback head coach combo being Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, every division has a combo worse. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where it starts for me. Obviously, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, Harbaugh, Herbert, Reed, Mahomes. I think those 3 combos are all on elite levels.
Mm-hmm.
Like, from just obviously, I don't think the Chargers are too elite, because the 3 teams making the playoffs are obviously Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. But just
We'll
from my
see,
predictions,
buddy. We'll
right?
see.
No. But I don't even think it's close, right? You start talking even elsewhere besides quarterback coaches. 3 of the best defenses in football: Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs. So now we're not even just talking about the offensive minds and quarterbacks. We're just talking about defenses,
Right.
and they have 3 of the best. Raiders have arguably the best defensive player in football on their defense. So it's not
Yeah.
like they're like slouching. Like as a unit, maybe, but they still have a Hall of Famer game wrecker in Max Crosby. And then they have Pete Carroll, who's going to have the defense prepared enough to look, competent. So I don't know. You just look at the AFC West compared to like the NFC South, and you're like, it's not even like it's not a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
To like just the wideness. And then I think the NFC North, you kind of still have the question mark with the Vikings and JJ McCarthy. You have what are the Lions going to look like without Ben Johnson calling plays and being all fancy. The Packers, I don't even know what to expect with the Packers, right? Like they're just weird.
Yep.
So I think that division would be the closest, but I think there's still too many question marks on those to really compete with the AFC West for the best division. Because like even outside of what we all said, coaches and quarterbacks, this division's also rocking 3 of the best defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at also. I look at the AFC North, but then you can't because the Browns, right? Like you don't know.
Yeah.
But I do see a strong bounce back from the Bengals, barring outside of their defense, who knows? So again, like you guys have said, NFC North, AFC West. I wish this was the year that we did play that whole division. I think we played the East this year. Thank God. That's gonna be some good. That's gonna be some good football. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Justin Hurt. I mean, that those are gonna be some good matchups. But I think when it's all said and done, I think the NFC East has the potential of possibly making a case, barring, you know, there's a lot of question marks there still. Where I don't feel like there's as many question marks with the West. I think head coach, quarterback, and even like look at the front offices, GM, head coach, quarterback, you have those kind of lining up. So it's a perfect storm, and I think that's why we're so excited to bring you guys the AFC West Roundtable multiple times throughout the season.
Oh yeah.
This again, 2 hours, 16 minutes. No one, we knew it was gonna be a long episode. Did we think it was gonna go this?
No.
I didn't. But that just means we brought to you guys what we're passionate about, the AFC West.
Yeah, when you have 3 good teams in the Chargers, a lot of conversation can really take place.
Cory, I just wanna pause it right there for a second. The other night, we were kind of testing out the studio, making sure everything was going to work properly. And you and I kind of had a conversation, and I said this could be a 2-hour show, if not more.
You did.
And when you get a group of guys that has the passion that we do for our teams, we don't know, and we don't know what each other said. So like, Austin throwing the Chargers at the bottom of the list, like that was a genuine reaction, guys. Like I didn't know he was going to say that,
Nobody
and
did.
so
Nice.
what this does is you guys are really going to see the passion that we have for our teams. Like, yeah, we have passion for football, but man, you're going to really see the passion for our teams on these episodes of the AFC West Roundtable. And this is just the first one we're going to be doing throughout the season, so stay tuned. You don't want to miss any of this, because this is going to be an instant classic every time that this group gets together.
Yeah, someone between you and me are going to be eating words, just given some of our takes. So, yeah, those future ones are going to be some hot takes.
I hope it's you eating your words and not me, but I will eat mine.
So make sure you guys go. Matt had the rookie move. Laptop died, so obviously not like we're doing a show. Matt, plug it in next time, buddy, if you're watching. So make sure you guys find us on Instagram. All of us are on Instagram. We're very active on Instagram. Thank you to our new followers. I think we were at 901 earlier when I looked, so we're getting closer to 1K followers. Our Twitter numbers or X numbers are going up as well. So again, thank you to all of our new followers. Timmy, I know you're getting ready to do a giveaway on yours. And again, so go find those guys on Instagram. We're on TikTok. I'm still not very good at posting on TikTok, but I'm working slowly on getting on TikTok. Any closing words, boys, before we roll out?
Go ahead, Tim.
I just want to say that this is truly an honor to be sitting here at this table with this group. Cory, when you pitched the idea, I think it was a month ago or so, or close to a month ago, in our little chat that we're in. And I said to you, I said, I want to represent the Chargers because I want to be a part of this because I know that this is going to be great. And I know that when people see it and when they hear it, even on Spotify, they're going to see the passion that the five of us have, and I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to question that. And this group, I mean, we love talking football. These guys, they like talking, more sports. I'm strictly football, so that's all I will ever talk about on my show. But real quick, guys, fans, listeners, if you ever want to talk ball, we will answer the call.
Love it. Love it. Cody, you got anything?
I really appreciate the invite, fellas. This has been a great 2 hours and 20-minute program. Doesn't even feel like that. And I've been on some shows where it feels like it's forever long. This one felt pretty quick. I'm really fortunate that you guys reached out, and I can't wait to, do a bunch of trash talking to you guys when our AFC West teams face off to one another, hear your guys' reactions to teams when they lost, when I cry on your guys' shoulders because my Raiders just ain't doing it. So I'm looking forward to this season. I appreciate this, what you guys are doing here. And I can't wait to see what the rest of the season holds.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we have schedule released next week. So we'll see how everyone's schedules are going. Bro, do you have anything?
No, I just want to thank you guys for joining. Always good to just talk sports, get a little debates going on, good conversation, and really just, I think what Timmy said, right? Just getting some passion out there, but also sharing just some team knowledge and team tidbits, right? Like different points of views. That's my favorite part of it. If you can't tell, like sometimes my point of views are, as he said, out of left field.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite thing, right? I don't like repeating what kind of everyone else says, right? Like in my heart, do I actually think the Chargers might finish last? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't like just repeating like what everyone expects, right? Like if there's one thing I wanted to switch, that was the one thing that I like pinpointed. Like I could see this happening more than any of my left field ideas, right?
Okay.
So like just getting different points of views, different opinions, that's my favorite part. So I just appreciate you guys joining the conversation, throwing some good topics, knowledge, passion out there. It's been a blast, more than we could have ever asked for, and really just appreciate you guys joining.
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you to everyone in the chat. This was an active chat tonight. Loved seeing it. I wish I could have put all of it on the screen, but we were trying not to disrupt the flow of everything. So we'll work on getting the audio out here in the next couple of days. I know StreamYard takes a little bit more time to upload and then getting it to Transistor and stuff, and then out to Spotify. So look for that in the next couple of days, and we'll let these guys know when the audio's out. So make sure you guys go subscribe to the YouTube channels, all of our YouTube channels, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Have a good day, guys.
Chiefs.